Chapter 2241. Out of his expectation, the two of them returned to the place where Gu Shizhou had broken up with Di Fui. Once they arrived, Yun Yanli released the blood butterfly in hopes of finding Di Fui. To their dismay, the blood butterfly danced around a circle and fell back to Yun Yanli's palm. Gu Shizhou looked at him curiously. How? Yun Yanli slowly shook his head. The blood butterfly cannot sense his breath. He is not here. Shizhou, let's try another place. Gu Shizhou looked disappointed. She stared at the blood butterfly and contemplated. He was definitely here last night. Can't your blood butterfly follow his tracks to find him? Yun Yanli shook his head. The blood butterfly can only sense if the targeted person is within a 100-mile radius. Gu Shizhou paused for a moment, and then silently went to look for clues. The torrential rain last night had washed away any tracks on the ground. Furthermore, there were always beasts in this place. Hence, it was not easy to find the trail of a person. Yun Yanli looked at Gu Shizhou from afar. She seemed to be very detailed and thorough when she was examining the place. While staring at her, he had just realized that she was still wearing the same clothes she wore the day before. There were bloodstains on her attire, and there was a hole in the sleeve. Having known her for many years in the upper bound while visiting friends and battling with monsters, he knew her temperament quite well. Although she was not obsessed with cleanliness, she always kept herself neat and tidy. She would not usually wear the same clothes overnight. What's more, this set of clothes was quite filthy. Yun Yanli speculated that she must have fallen deeply for Di Fui for her to have put aside all concern for herself in order to find him. Even though Yun Yanli was with her for more than 100 years, he could not change her feelings for him. She always treated him as a friend. He thought that no other man could make her fall in love again. He never expected Di Fui to win her heart in the Shura world. On top of that, he also did not expect Di Fui to be such a jerk. How could he have pretended to be her fiancé to earn her trust, and also get her body? It was despicable. It was totally unacceptable. Unfortunately for him, such an excellent opportunity had been grabbed by Di Fui. If he had found her first, he might have won her heart here too. God was unfair to him. Yun Yanli secretly clenched his fist in regret. His eyes then fell on Gu Shizhou again. Although she had no memory and had lost a lot of her abilities, her character had not changed much. She was still so beautiful that he could not keep his eyes off her. He did not know when he started to fall in love with her. Perhaps, it started not too long after they got to know each other. He had certainly fallen head over heels for her. At that time, he certainly felt inferior to her. She did not care about status or power, unlike the common women around him. Moreover, she already had someone in her heart, so Yun Yanli just kept his feelings to himself to prevent the situation from becoming awkward. He planned to build the relationship between them slowly, and hoped that when she slowly discovered his strengths, that she would let go of the person in her heart, and accompany him to become his wife. He used to be confident that if he had enough time with her that he would eventually win her heart. After all, he was a prince in the upper bound, so his identity would be favorable to him. He also knew some secrets that ordinary immortals did not understand. Chapter 2242. It was really unethical. Yun Yanli knew that if the Lord of Lower Bound did not ascend after his or her soul dissipated, that person would not be reincarnated. Therefore, he had been waiting for his moment. However, he never expected that his family would be slain. He was a prince that used to be highly respected, but was now a mouse that was chased around on the street. Although he seemed to be a gentleman that liked peace, he was actually very arrogant and ambitious. When the Yun family was still in power, he secretly cultivated his power to compete for the position of the crown prince. However, before he could start a war, things had utterly changed. These years he had been patiently waiting for his opportunity. He tried to gain more power and secretly developed his own ability. He wanted to restore his family's power and stand on the peak again. He would ascend as the Emperor Immortal. Of course, he had never let go of Gu Shizhou. The idea of getting her to be his future queen had never changed. It was just that he did not want her to see into his mind. Otherwise, he might not even get to be her friend. He thought that it was good that she temporarily had someone in her heart, lest others would chase her before he gained back his fame. He thought he had enough time to fight for her, and did not expect his queen to be stolen from him by the little bastard, Xin Yanma. He never expected that the son of Divine Lord and Great Devil would use such a despicable method to steal his woman. It was really unethical. How could an immortal actually do such a shameful thing? Nonetheless, Yin Yanli had been waiting for this woman for hundreds of years. How could he let her go so easily? In the upper bound, he might not be the opponent of Di Fui. After all, the kid had so many prime masters to protect him. However, he was undoubtedly the king in the Shura world. He had subordinates all around, and his skill was unprecedentedly high. He was already at the level of a mighty immortal. He was probably invincible here. Yin Yanli believed that after some time, he would be able to break through the boundary of a mighty immortal and reach the level of a great deity. When the time came, he would return to the upper bound and take back what he once owned to avenge the Yin family. At the scene, Yin Yanli was still wandering around to look for clues. He was also very puzzled that Di Fui went missing. Yin Yanli could tell that Di Fui was injured at the time, but he was not sure of the extent of the injury. He also could not tell Di Fui's current level of spiritual power. Thus, he did not act rashly. He wanted to test him when Gu Shijie left, but he did not anticipate that she would suddenly return and bring him along with her. Right after that, Di Fui had disappeared. Yin Yanli had sent many subordinates to find him, but they all failed. Did Di Fui leave the Shura world? It was impossible, right? He did not seem to be someone who would give up so easily. The more reasonable explanation was that he realized the potential danger, so he hid in some secret place. But where could he go? How could he hide so well that no one could find him? Yin Yanli had a lot of thoughts in his mind at that moment. When he turned his head, he saw that Gu Shijie was kneeling on the ground, carefully studying a particular spot with a wooden stick. He walked over and asked, "What did you find?" Gu Shijie bit her lips and used the stick to retrieve a small black bone. Surprised, Yin Yanli carefully examined the bone. Chapter 2243. Her observation skill was too sharp. Yin Yanli casually said, "There are always fights between the beasts, so it is quite normal for there to be a residual bone, right? This bone belongs to a human." Gu Shijie used a leaf to carry the small bone and concluded, "This person has just died. If I am not mistaken, he died last night." Yin Yanli remained silent. Her observation skill was too sharp. He knew that she was a doctor and that her medical expertise was very sophisticated. Therefore, she was very familiar with the human body. If she were in the upper bound before, it was not unusual for her to make such a conclusion. However, she had lost her memory now. Could she be mistaken? How do you know that? Yin Yanli was very confused. Instinct. Gu Shijie answered in one word. Yin Yanli was speechless. Well, some skills are acquired naturally and cannot be taken away even by a loss of memory. Upon closer observation, Gu Shijie also found a piece of cloth. It was black, and it seemed like it was torn from a robe. She picked it up and tucked it into her sleeve. Yin Yanli asked, "Shijie, do you think that Mr. Fui has been killed? I remember that he wore a green robe yesterday." "This is not him." Gu Shijie interrupted. "This person died here at around 11 p.m. It seemed like some poison eroded him. This was around the time when she broke up with Di Fui. Hence, it could not be him." Nonetheless, Gu Shijie wanted to get down to the bottom of this matter. Gu Shijie did not like to explain when she investigated a case, so she did not reveal much after the cloth was collected. She had already studied the area thoroughly, but could not find anything else. Therefore, she decided to leave together with Yin Yanli. Shortly after they left, a young boy in a light green robe appeared on a big tree in the distance. He had a baby face with 2 small dimples, which accentuated his looks. It was Dai Er, the subordinate of the mysterious black-robed man last night. This person was actually a woman. She just loved menswear and liked to travel around the world as a man. She looked in the direction in which Gu Shijie and Yin Yanli took from a distance. She was holding a branch in her hand and shattered it with little effort. Her master treated Gu Shijie extraordinarily well. In front of her, he even hid more than half of his original strength. Did he just want to be with her on an equal status? Or did he actually have another intention? While contemplating, the directed audio spell at her waist suddenly lit up. She picked it up and heard a voice from the other side. Palace Master, we have searched the area within a 500-mile radius and did not find that person. Continue searching. Yes, Palace Master. However, if we continue heading north, we will soon enter the demon realm. If that person has gone into that realm, there is no need to enter. The demon realm in the Shura world does not allow outsiders to enter, and there is also devil fire at the grounds. If an outsider enters into that area, he or she will only be burnt into charcoal. Yes, Master. The Shura world was actually huge. It was about the size of China. There were rivers and lakes, deserts and swamps, alpine and hills, as well as a plethora of other things. According to an insider, the entire Shura world used to have a population of more than 100 million people. There were humans, monsters, devils, and beasts. Although the land here was barren, it was still peaceful. Many communities coexisted in this world. However, a significant change happened 100 years ago. The population here had been reduced by 90%, leaving less than 10 million people who survived. They were distributed among the 9 remaining cities in the Shura world, and the average population in each town was almost the same at around 1 million. Chapter 2244. This person had completely disappeared. Although the population size had shrunk dramatically, it was still difficult to find Difui. Shijio, I suspect that Difui has returned to the upper bound. When Yun Yanli said this sentence, he and Gu Shijio were in Suiyi City. It had been more than a year since Difui went missing. Gu Shijio had traveled to 9 cities in this continent to the point where her footprints could be found throughout the Shura world. If Difui were still in the Shura world, he would undoubtedly enter one of the cities because of the blood rain. Additionally, he would only stay in luxurious accommodation due to his nature. Thus, every time Gu Shijio entered a city, she would find all the inns that looked posh in the town and searched every room. Except for the inn in Luohua City where he once lived, she could not find any trail of him elsewhere. No one seemed to have seen or heard of him either. This person had completely disappeared. There was no trace of him at all, which made it seem like he never even came here in the first place. Difui, from now on, you will walk your path, and I will have my own path. I will never want to see you again. This was what she once said to him, and she never saw him again after that. Suiyi City was the last city that Gu Shijio explored. The city was bustling with crowds, but Difui was nowhere to be seen. Quite a number of things happened this year. Gu Shijio had contributed a lot of spiritual crystals to the owner of Luohua City, so Yi Ling had been treating her people well. They were arranged to have good jobs, and were also placed in good houses. They also had good meals. It was safe to say that the villagers had finally settled down in Luohua City. Since Gu Shijio did not have to worry about them anymore, she spent most of her time this year traveling the Shura world in search of someone. Half a year ago, she had returned to Luohua City, and she heard the news that Yi Ling's wife, the co-owner of Luohua City, had died of illness. Gu Shijio had heard that she was the orchestrator behind the scenes who was very capable. To avoid causing a panic among the people, Yi Ling concealed the death of his wife until 5 months had passed. In those 5 months, the people in the city were still living peacefully, and had not experienced any significant changes. Gu Shijio did not pay much attention to the matter. After all, Madame Yin had been living alone, and she did not know her at all. Having analyzed the situation, it seemed that Madame Yin passed away half a month after the disappearance of Difui. Meanwhile, Gu Shijio managed to obtain an ample amount of spiritual crystals, and managed to restore part of her spiritual power. She now possessed a level 8 spiritual power. Not many people in the Shura world could challenge her. Furthermore, with her improved abilities, she was now able to quickly kill any beasts that carried second-grade spiritual crystals with them. Coupled with her teleportation skill, no one dared to mess with her. Yun Yanli had accompanied her closely since Difui's sudden disappearance. Of course, he occasionally had his own private affairs. However, he would always reconnect with her as soon as he sorted his issues out. Time passed by briskly as they searched for Difui. Nonetheless, every time Gu Shijio entered a new city, she would do so with hope. Needless to say, Her hope turned into disappointment at every turn. It was now near noon, so the two found a restaurant to sit and have a meal. The currency used in the Shura world was not gold or silver. Instead, the citizens had to exchange spiritual crystals for paper noted that were accepted in the city. Gu Shijio had hunted more than enough spiritual crystal, so naturally, she changed a lot of paper notes. No matter where she went, she did not need to worry about money. Chapter 2245. Everyone stayed safe and sound. Suiyi City was very near to the Black Desert, which was the territory of the Devil Kingdom in the Shura world. During her journey, Gu Shijio learned that the Devil Kingdom in the Shura world was homegrown. The Devil Kingdom was mighty and once occupied 2/3 of the Shura world. Later, there was a mysterious immortal who appeared in the Shura world. This immortal led the human race to fight against the Devil Kingdom for 10 years. Finally, the Devil Kingdom retreated, and in the end, only the Black Desert belonged to the Devil Kingdom. The human race had finally been able to prosper. Not only did they defeat the Devil Kingdom, but they also managed to practice their spiritual power and develop it. Initially, the human race had its own methods of cultivation, but because of the war, the vast majority of the human race had practiced the same skill of the mysterious immortal. In particular, their method of training their spiritual power came from the mysterious immortal. This immortal was very secretive. He rarely showed up in front of people. On the rare occasion when he did appear, he would be in a black robe with a mask on his face. Therefore, no one had actually seen his real face before. Everyone just respected him as the immortal of Shura and treated him as the patron saint of the Shura world. After more than 20 years of peaceful life, the spiritual power of the Shura world disappeared overnight. The fierce beasts became enraged, and the bloody rain poured out every 10 days here. It made the human race in the Shura world almost completely demolished. Fortunately, during the critical period, the immortal of Shura, who had been quiet for more than 20 years, had once again appeared. He used his excellent skill to build the 9 great cities and saved the life of the survivors. Besides, he also looked for 9 special spiritual power practitioners to be the city owners. It was said that these special ritual power practitioners could strengthen the wizardry barrier on the cities. If these people went missing without a proper successor, the city would be destroyed by the blood rain. Everyone thought that the Devil Kingdom created this disaster. However, during these years, the Devil Kingdom had never even made a move. They kept an extremely low profile. Despite these odd challenges, the human race had never weakened their defense. Instead, they got even stronger. The lingering fear that the Devil Kingdom was plotting against them kept them vigilant and at their best. There were spiritual power practitioners who wanted to take the initiative to attack the Devil Kingdom. They sent spies into the Devil Kingdom to gather information. However, none of the spies came back alive. Later, they sent it masters to analyze the situation. Fortunately, some escaped by luck and reported that it was not a suitable place for humans to enter. There was a devil fire everywhere which would burn any human into ashes. After this, the humans gave up the idea of destroying the Devil Kingdom. After all, the two races had not offended each other. Hence, everyone had stayed safe and sound. There were many different versions of stories to explain why the Devil race had never taken any opportunity to attack the human race. The most reasonable explanation was that the disputes within the Devil Kingdom had been quite intense in these years, so they had no time to care about the outside world. Shijio, why do you think the Devil race has never sought revenge? In the room, Yun Yanli casually asked Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio said calmly, I have not been to the Shura Devil Kingdom, so I have no comment. Yun Yanli remained silent. He could not continue the topic anymore. In the year when he stayed by her side, although her abilities were not fully restored, her character was getting more similar to the time when she was in the upper bound. She did not care about anything, she did not like to talk, and she was always cold and calm. Yun Yanli stared at her while she was sipping the wine in her glass. He noticed that her skin had returned to its original state. It was no longer wheat-colored and dry. Her eyelashes were thick with curls. They were stunning features. Chapter 2246. Did he really go back to heaven? Gu Zijia's appearance could always attract attention no matter where she went, so she often wore a mask when she went out and only removed it when she was eating. Therefore, Yun Yanli was the only one fortunate enough to be able to see her original appearance often. Of course, Yun Yanli was also very handsome. When he was outside with his original appearance, he often attracted attention from the women. Sometimes they even sent him flowers and fruits to show their admiration. Like Gu Shijie, Yun Yanli also decided to don a mask whenever he was outside. The mask he chose was quite similar to Gu Zijie's mask, which made them look like a couple. However, that was the closest he could get. Although he often stayed with her, he never entered her heart. She only treated him as a friend. She seemed to have an instinctive rejection of men, and not let anyone get too close. She did make friends with some women who she got close to, but always kept a fair distance from any men. Even when she covered her face, Gu Zijie's body figure was very noticeable. As she was so capable, she had a lot of admirers around her that made her feel frustrated. After some time, she did not even want to wear women's clothing, but changed to large male robes. After she did so, her life was back to peace and tranquility. Shijie, what are your plans for the future? This was already the last city inhabited by humans. If she continued to search, she could only go into the Devil Kingdom of the Shura world. However, the Devil Kingdom was not suitable for her. It could be said that it was not ideal for any immortal. Gu Shijie turned the glass in her hand for a moment and shook her head. I have no plans yet. Perhaps I will head back to Luohua City for a while. What if he had returned to the inn in Luohua City? After all, his bedding was left there. No one had moved it away. Over the past year, Gu Shijie went back to Luohua City once every 2 or 3 months. Her main reasons were to visit the villagers and also to head back to the inn. She would always take the same room that she used to sleep in. Initially, she was always hopeful. But after a few disappointments, she started to become numb. Did he really go back to heaven? Or he was still hiding? Or had he been killed? If he returned to the upper bound, it showed that he could cut off the relationship so easily, and was probably not in love with her. If he were in hiding, who or what was he hiding from? Was he hiding from her? She was not a beast, and he was not the type of person to hide from someone. Had he been killed? It was impossible. Her instinct told her that he was still alive, and her sixth sense had always been extremely accurate. Therefore, based on her reasoning, it was more likely that he had gone back to the upper bound. Gu Shijie actually wanted to go to heaven, but she could not find a way to get there. She did not know the path to go back to heaven. She had asked Yun Yanli before. Yun Yanli told her that if she wanted to go to the upper bound, she could do so by ascending. When her spiritual power reaches level 10, she could ascend after experiencing a calamity. He told her that he did not know any other way than this. This method was quite tricky and was out of reach for her in the short term. Gu Shijie knew that it was difficult for her to achieve that level of spiritual power at the moment, so she temporarily gave up on going back to heaven. However, that made her wonder how Di Fui had gone back to upper bound. If there was only one way, then wouldn't he also need to ascend? When Di Fui came to this world, he exhausted a significant amount of spiritual power to do so, but he recovered quite quickly. When she saw him, his spiritual power was around level 6, but after he absorbed a grade 1 spiritual crystal, his spiritual power rose directly to level 9. Hence, it should not be difficult for him to reach level 10. As for Gu Shijie, although she had absorbed quite a number of spiritual crystals, her spiritual power growth was slow. She did not quite understand that. Back in heaven, Gu Zijie's spiritual power was the highest among the 3. She would have never imagined that one day she would be the weakest here in the Shura world. Could it be that God saw that she was too strong in the upper bound, so he sent her down to have a humbling experience? Gu Zijie's fingers repeatedly tapped on the table. She was a little distracted. Shijie, if you found Mr. Fui, what would you do? Yun Yanli started a topic that she might be interested in. Gu Shijie returned her attention to the room. She raised her glass to drink some wine. Nothing. I just want to make sure that he is safe. Yun Yanli's eyes flashed for a moment. He smiled. You are so obsessed with him. I would have thought that after you found him, you would want to marry him. You overthink. Gu Shijie put an end to the chat. She just wanted to make sure that he was safe. The rest was not important at this minute. She turned the bracelet on her wrist. It was a simple black bracelet that did not stand out in any way at all. However, it had been with her for as long as she could remember. When she woke up in this world, this bracelet was the first thing she saw. She remembered that when she saw it, it tried to flash, but then it became entirely black right after that. In her subconscious mind, this bracelet seemed to have other compelling features, but she could not recall anything until now. Yanli also looked at this ugly bracelet. He suddenly thought of something and smiled again. Shijio, this bracelet is worn out. I saw a bracelet in Ice City a few days ago, and it is quite suitable for you. I bought it and wanted to give it to you. He turned over his palm, and a bright bracelet appeared. The material of this bracelet made it look crystal clear like water. However, there was a violet tint to it. In Yanli's palm, it looked like purple water. It was definitely a lovely accessory. Shijio, this bracelet has a function. It has a protective effect. It can slow down the consumption of spiritual power in your body. Guzijia's heart jolted. There was no spiritual power in this Shura world. To gain spiritual power, one could only rely on absorbing spiritual crystal from the beasts that possessed them. Moreover, being in this world also consumed spiritual power from the human body. Thus, even if one did not fight with spiritual power, their spiritual power would be exhausted day by day. Spiritual power practitioners here needed to absorb a grade 3 spirit crystal every 10 days as a supplement. Fortunately, Gu Shijio did not lack spiritual crystals. However, it was still beneficial if she had a way to slow down the consumption of her spiritual power. Anyone would rightfully expect her to accept this bracelet immediately. However, she refused. Thank you, but I have never liked jewelry items. You can give it to someone else. Yanli looked away. After everything they had been through, she still refused to accept things from him. He had tried giving her a number of things throughout the year, but she had outright rejected them. Perhaps, she did not like the feeling of owing something to other people. If it were not for his blood butterfly, it was possible that Gu Shijio might not even be traveling with him. In order not to owe him anything, she decided to hunt for spiritual crystals for him. Every time Yanli used his blood butterfly for her, she always gave him a grade 2 spiritual crystal as thanks. If he refused to accept it, she would not let him follow her anymore. Shijio, I am your friend. Is this how you treat your friend? Yanli really wanted to say this to Gu Shijio. However, he did not dare to. He was afraid that their relationship would be broken if he did so. In the upper bound, he loved her secretly, and in the Shura world, he loved her carefully. He put away the bracelet and gently forced up the corner of his lips. It was done so forcibly that he could not tell if he was laughing at himself or treating it all as a joke. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Chapter 2248. Was this some sort of gift that could be recalled? Yanli and Gu Shijio were on the second floor of an elegant restaurant. It was quiet and peaceful up there, and was undoubtedly a delightful location. Initially, this restaurant was full. However, after they came, a few people who had initially been booked this elegant room suddenly left due to an emergency. Therefore, both of them managed to get this room. Suddenly, there was some commotion downstairs. Gu Shijio was quite bored, so she went to the window to check it out. Her heartbeat raced rigorously. It was the birthday party of the son of a modest officer in the city. This family probably wanted to show off. Thus, they held the birthday banquet in the most luxurious restaurant in the town, and reserved the entire first floor. At that moment, it was time for gifts to be presented to their son. Many guests were walking forward to provide birthday presents to the kid. The kid was held in the arms of his mother. He had a pair of big eyes with double eyelids and looked very adorable. When the guests played with him, he giggled, and it made him look very cute. Gu Shijio could not help but look at the child. She did not know what was going on, but she somehow felt that this scene was very familiar to her. I also want to give your son a gift. A soft female voice came out from an elegant room on the second floor. Along with the sound, everyone saw a woman in white come down. This woman had white hair and wore a white dress. Her hair was so long that it could almost reach her feet. She used a black jade hairpin to keep her hair neat. The white dress she wore was simple in design, but it fitted her body very well. There was a whirling design on it that swayed along with her every move. She wore a butterfly-shaped mask on her face which revealed only a pair of jade-like eyes and a slightly thin lip. There were a lot of guests in the restaurant, and a number of them were female. However, no one had the same aura as her. Her fair skin made her look elegant and pure. When she stood there, her white dress fluttered, and as if she were standing in the middle of the cloud. Although her face was covered and people could not see how she looked like, this kind of elegant feeling was enough to attract every pair of eyes in the restaurant. Some people's eyes fell on her, and were full of curiosity. Even the host was curious as he did not seem to know her. The kid's father stepped forward and asked, "Miss, who are you?" The woman smiled slightly and turned around briefly. In her palm was a delicate longevity jade lock. The jade was warm and shining. She handed it over. "I like your son from the moment I first saw him, so I want to wish him well with this gift." The woman's voice was slightly hoarse, but it was not difficult to hear. It was so gentle to the ears that no one could possibly dislike it. The male host saw her tender hand, and his heart shook. He replied, "Thank you, miss." He raised his hand to take the jade lock from her palm. When he reached her palm, he scratched it. The woman's palm went stiff, but she did not retract it. She just frowned slightly. The man took the longevity lock and handed it to his wife behind him. When his wife was trying to keep the lock, the woman spoke. "Madam, you can wear the lock on your son and see whether it suits him. If it does not suit him, I will need to take back the lock." Was this some sort of gift that could be recalled? The guests looked at each other, confused. Gu Shijio looked down from upstairs, and her heart seemed to be struck. This situation was very familiar. She vaguely felt that she had personally experienced it before. While observing the entire scene unfold before her eyes, Gu Shijio suddenly saw a black-robed man fall from the sky and give a box to a kid who looked 5 or 6 years old. "This gift is given to you as your birthday gift." Chapter 2249. Such an unexpected mishap. "I don't want your gift." The attractive kid responded proudly. "This gift is reserved for people who are destined for it. If you don't want it, then you will not be destined for it." "Wait. Since you already gave it to me, I want to take a look first. If you can open this box, then the gift inside is yours. If you can't, then forget about it." "Shijio, what happened?" Yin Yanli asked. Gu Shijio was interrupted by him, and the scenes in her mind suddenly disappeared. However, she clearly saw the kid in the picture and saw the gift in the box. It was a glass dragon bracelet. Specifically, it was the glass dragon bracelet worn on Di Fuya's wrist. Her heart pounded faster at that very moment, and she knew that this must be from her past. The black-robed man who gave the gift to him should be her. Although Gu Shijio heard from Yin Yanli that she gave a birthday present to Di Fui, she only possessed an abstract understanding of it, and not such a vivid picture as it was now. Di Fui was really cute as a child. Gu Shijio raised her hand and massaged her eyebrows. She knew that she would never fall in love with a kid in the upper bound. That was absurd. Besides, Huang Tu was the person in her heart, so it was not even a question. When Di Fui met Gu Shijio in the Shura world, he was already an adult, and he had exceptional abilities. He also claimed to be her fiancé, so she did not even think that he was a kid. Therefore, she fell head over heels for him, and was even afraid that he would run away. Hence, she wanted to give herself to him to keep him by her side. This was really such an unexpected mishap. She was vulnerable and did not know what was going on. In a twist of events, Gu Shijio now subconsciously treated him as an adult despite seeing his appearance as a child just several years ago. After all, she had been very close with him for 3 days and even had an intimate relationship with him one night. Reflecting on the past, Gu Shijio realized that she had indeed fallen for Di Fui at the time. However, what about Huang Tu? Would he be disappointed that she had given herself away before he reincarnated? All these contemplations left Gu Shijio miserable over the past year. She was so angry when she found out the truth. However, despite being mad at him, she was actually mad at herself. She was furious that she let herself fall in love with somebody else. On the surface, It seemed that she did not want to forgive him, but actually she did not want to forgive herself. All of a sudden, Difuya's shadow seemed to flash in front of her eyes. At that very moment, she felt as if a sharp needle had pierced her heart. It was still important to find him now because she did not even know if he was still alive. Where was he? Shijio. Yunyanli did not feel good being ignored by her. What's wrong with you? Gu Shijio shook her head slightly and brought her thoughts back into the room. However, she changed the subject. Nothing. The woman down there is gorgeous. Yunyanli looked down and was slightly shocked. He vaguely thought that this woman seemed quite familiar. She looked like his acquaintance, but that person had already died. How could she appear here again? He looked at the woman carefully again and shook his head secretly. This was not her. It could not be. Chapter 2250. What do you want? Yunyanli's acquaintance was not as tall as the woman downstairs. Furthermore, her body shape was not that similar. Also, her hair was not so white and not so long. Gu Shijio was quite sensitive to his sudden change of behavior. Do you know this woman? I don't know her. Yunyanli directly denied. At that moment, the longevity jade locket had been hung on the boy's neck. The jade locket was initially pure, but it grew moist after hanging on the boy's neck. It seemed to have been contaminated with water vapor, and it had a faint multicolored light emerging from its surface. This locket is destined for your son. The woman stepped back and turned to leave. Wait. The man suddenly stepped forward and grasped the woman's hand. Since you gave us such a good gift, why don't you stay for a cup of tea before you leave? The woman frowned, but before she had had time to respond, 3 white lights were shining down from the second floor. The man screamed and squatted down immediately. His forehead was suddenly immersed in sweat. His wrist had broken. The white lights crushed it. His palm was hanging down at a 90-degree angle, and it looked bizarre. Everyone was shocked and shouted, "Who was that? Who dares to create such a catastrophe? Come down." There were still a lot of guests downstairs. Several brave ones stood up and dashed toward the room on the second floor where the lights came from. Shoo! 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 Numerous white lights shot out of the room, accurately blasting the legs of those people. Before they could enter the room, they had fallen to their knees. There was one guy who could not even pull himself up and fell from the railing on the second floor. He broke a wine table. All the guests screamed as the place turned to chaos. Gu Zijia's eyes were sharp. In one glance, she knew that the white lights were silk threads. There were numerous lines of silk that traveled together and pierced the legs of those people. There must be a master in the room. Perhaps this person was the partner of the white dress woman, because she had come down from that room earlier. Was he trying to protect her? He seemed rather ruthless. After all, the male host just wanted to seize the opportunity to hold the hand of the beautiful woman. No one expected this to happen. Seeing what had happened to the brave men to dashed upstairs before, the rest of the people did not dare not to intervene. They looked at each other and decided to flee. Pock! The door of the restaurant suddenly closed although there was no wind. The person who was at the front almost got hit by the door. Everyone was stunned, and they turned their heads from the door back to the room again. There was a curtain hanging down in the room, so the inside was hidden. People could only see a blurred figure. There was a man who stood against the window. Although they could only see a shadow, the people downstairs were scared to the core. The male host knew that he was no match. He did not care about his wrist but only looked at his wife. His wife understood his intention, so she asked with courage, "Hello, what do you want?" "Apologize." A cold and magnetic voice was heard. "Sorry. I am sorry." The man apologized again and again. "Kneel." The male host was ashamed and angry, but he did not dare to disobey his instruction. He could only bear with it and kneeled to apologize to the woman. Chapter 2251. Could it be him? The woman seemed to be very happy with what she witnessed. "Brother, I'm fine. There is no need to care about these yokels. Let's go. A lady has to be respected and should not be taken advantage of." "All right, noted. Let's go." The conversation was rather soft. It was just like an ordinary chatter in the room. If it happened earlier when the restaurant was full of noise, their conversation would naturally not be heard. However, the scene was too shocking to the crowd. No matter if it was at the lobby, first floor or second floor, everyone was quiet. Thus, their conversation seemed a bit loud. The people downstairs were angry but also embarrassed, especially the male host, whose hand had been broken. His face was red. Besides being angry, these people were also quite curious. Who was this so-called brother? It was so unusual that he could make the beautiful woman so obedient to listen to him. Since the two of them decided to leave, they would naturally come down the stairs and pass through the hall. Therefore, everyone was waiting. In the room on the second floor, Gu Shizhou was waiting too. Her fingertips were slightly cold, while her heartbeat raced. That voice, although it did not sound like Di Fuyas, it carried a certain aura to it. Could it be him? Her fingers grabbed the railing tightly in anticipation. Her fingertips had actually turned white. Yun Yanli was equally curious as the attacks launched earlier were no small feat as far as he knew. There was only one person who was an expert in this field, Yun Qingluo. Was the man in the opposite room her master? The man's eyes were dark, and he lazily leaned against the railing. Countless people were waiting for the two of them to come out of the room, but nothing happened. The people below were looking at each other curiously. Were these two not leaving anymore? Gu Shizhou suddenly had a thought, and she decided to teleport into the room. In fact, she was not sure whether that man was Di Fui or not. It was quite a risky move. The man inside was clearly not to be messed with. If she entered without permission, she would probably anger him and would have to run from his attacks. She did not give it much thought. After all, she had been searching for him for more than a year. Now that she had a little hope, how could she let it go? She was ready to fight with the other party and take the risk. When she finally entered the room, she saw that the two of them were no longer there. The only thing left was a table of leftover dishes. None of the people in the restaurant had seen how the two of them left. Therefore, no one knew the identity of the man. Gu Shizhou ran to the window in the room and noticed that it was half opened. Did they jump out the window? Other than the smell of food, there was a faint scent in this elegant room. The smell was very light at first, but it eventually suppressed the other fragrances in the room. This fragrance smelled like an orchid and probably came from the woman. Shizhou. Yun Yanli dashed into the room and slammed the door open on his way in. He did not know how to teleport, so he came in a little later than Gu Shizhou. When he saw Gu Shizhou standing idly inside, his instincts told him that something did not add up. What's wrong? Gu Shizhou shook her head and did not speak. She did not want to waste her time saying something she was not sure of. Yun Yanli, being extremely intelligent, immediately raised his hand and released a blood butterfly. He knew that Gu Shizhou wanted to know if the man was Di Fui. Nonetheless, the blood butterfly stayed on the back of his hand. It flapped its wings but did not leave his hand. Apparently, there was no result from the search. Yun Yanli heaved a sigh of relief. If the man were Di Fui, he would not be able to travel more than 100 miles in such a brief moment. Hence, the blood butterfly would have tracked him down. Therefore, the man in the room earlier was not him. After diverting his attention away from the butterfly, Yun Yanli smelled the orchid-like aroma in the room, and his eyes flashed. These two people are a little bit weird. Yun Yanli then twirled his fingers again, and the blood butterfly was released into the air. This time, the blood butterfly was not detecting Di Fui's breath, but instead, was looking for the white-dressed woman. After the blood butterfly turned around, it flew straight out of the room. Yun Yanli and Gu Shizhou rushed toward it, and tried to keep up. The sky was full of red clouds while beneath them was a black ink stain-like layer. By looking at it from afar, it seemed like the night fell early, and the red light could not penetrate it. However, in the dark, there were strange green lights inside the clouds that looked like fireflies. It was the famous Black Desert in the Shura world. The green lights were the great evil fires in the desert. The desert was initially a hot place, but when Gu Shizhou came close to it, she felt a chill. The blood butterfly had tracked the woman in white all the way here, and no longer moved forward. It just surrounded Yun Yanli in circles. The two of them come from the Devil Kingdom. Yun Yanli made a conclusion. Gu Shijio looked at the black desert and did not speak for a while. Shijio, do you think that the man is him? The people who practice immortality can enter the devil kingdom in the Shura world. Otherwise, once they go in, even if the devils do not kill them, the evil fire is enough to take their life. Gu Shijio shook her head. I didn't think that it was him. I just thought that these two people were very strange. The devils have always been secretive. The things they did were considered normal to them, regardless of how weird it may seem to us. Gu Shijio looked at the black desert and pondered. Yin Yanli seemed to be aware of something. Shijio, the devils and the humans have been living in peace for the past few years. We don't need to provoke them. After all, although these two people are vicious, they did not create a big issue. Please don't have the idea to enter the black desert. You should not go to this place. It was not in her nature to explain herself, and she did not usually express her emotions on her face. Therefore, even though Yin Yanli had been with her for a year, he often did not know what was in her mind. Gu Shijio finally turned around and replied, "Let's go back to the city." Yin Yanli heaved another sigh of relief. All right. Lately he felt like she was changing, but he could not pinpoint the root cause of it. It seemed that the aura around her had changed and it was quite similar to how she was in the upper bound. All of a sudden he grabbed her wrist tightly. Gu Shijio frowned at his action. What are you doing? Yin Yanli finally let go of her wrist and smiled. The evil atmosphere here is very thick. I was afraid that you might have been infected, so I just wanted to check. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. The result is, you are still normal. Yin Yanli seemed to be relieved. When he grabbed her wrist, he took the chance to check her spiritual power. It was still the same level, which was much lower than it was in the upper bound. It seemed like he had overthought. Chapter 2253. The return of her memory. Gu Shijio replied with a tight smile. That is great. At nightfall, the moon's radiance filled the dark sky. At the residence of the governor of Suaya City, there was a tranquil backyard. The dismal wind could be heard through the bushes of purple bamboo. In the depths of the bamboo garden stood a man in black robes. His face was unrecognizable under a mask with disturbing, ghostly features. His aura, however, was strong and definitely unapproachable. Master! A man with pale green robes emerged in a rush. He bowed before the man in the ghostly mask. Rise. Yes. Master. What is the matter that has brought you here in the depth of the night? Has anything odd happened in the city recently? Yes, General Leng recently celebrated his son's birthday at Fenghua Restaurant. There is no need to talk about that. I know about it well. The man in dark robes interrupted. I only want to know if there is anything wrong with the longevity locket from the woman. Nothing is wrong. In fact, the child has grown to become more beautiful after wearing the longevity locket. After the embarrassment, General Leng wanted to send the longevity locket away, but he changed his mind after witnessing the change in his son's complexion. Perplexed, the man in black continued. Have you found out about the background of the man and the woman? How did they leave? I have failed to find out their background. According to the restaurant owner, the man and the woman did not look very attractive at first. As normal as they could be, the only thing that was outstanding about them was their wealth. They were seated in the special guest room and had every signature dish that the restaurant had to offer. They did not even let the waiters serve them. To the owner's surprise, he did not expect them to be so powerful. The woman turned out to be very beautiful as well, completely different from her first impression. How did the man look? He looked tall but with average looks. He donned green robes. The man in black frowned at the lack of information. It was very common to find a man with the aforementioned features. There was not a specific direction in the search. However, his intuition told him that the man must be someone extraordinary. When the man and the woman made their entrance to the restaurant, they did not show anything about their true selves. Therefore, they must have cast a spell to hide away their looks. Who could they be? Is there anything wrong in the devil kingdom of the Shura world? Nothing. It is quiet as per the usual. Sometimes, the people from the devil kingdom will come out to make some business transactions, but that is all. They have not caused any trouble so far. The man in black was confused. He added, "Why did the couple from the Devil Kingdom show up so publicly then?" The man in green made a guess. Perhaps they did not intend to cause any trouble. The gift could merely be an impulsive decision incited by the cute little child. General Lung's misbehavior in taking liberties of the lady had unfortunately infuriated them. They seemed like a couple. Not every man can tolerate that kind of sexual assault. I do not believe in any act of kindness from the people of the Devil Kingdom. The gift was sent without any apparent reason. There must be something behind their action. Send your man to retrieve the longevity locket for me. I need to examine it myself. Yes. The man in green left swiftly. After a while, another mysterious figure made a sudden entrance from above and landed right before the man in black. Master! She had a beautiful face of a child, blessed with a sweet, charming smile. She was Dai. Dai, is there any news from your investigation on Yin Qingluo? Master, Yin Qingluo is dead. This was the result of her obsessive practice of kung fu almost a year ago. We have investigated her dead body and found nothing unusual. We dug her body out from the tomb and realized that her flesh was still intact, exactly like how she used to look when she was still alive. The man in black thought about the oddity for a moment. Indeed, Yin Qingluo had a unique physique that allowed her body to remain intact even after death. Was she not the woman in the restaurant then? Chapter 2254. The return of her memory too. The man in black continued to engage in a conversation with Dai. She answered everything that the man needed to know. Shortly after, Dai was assigned another mission. She left promptly. Meanwhile, the man in green returned with the longevity locket. The man in black examined the longevity locket for a while and found nothing strange about it. It was a locket with a rather ordinary design, complemented with a finely made jade piece. After some thought, the master decided to send the man in green on a mission to give the locket back. Certainly, he was not interested in the jewelry, especially when it was meant as a gift to a young child. The man in green robe added before leaving, "Master, should I strengthen the array formation now?" "Yes." The man in black nodded. The two of them then proceeded to another part of the garden and disappeared into the darkness. Seconds later, the garden returned to its usual tranquility. This bamboo garden had an aesthetic appeal. It had some of the best views of the Rocky Mountains and endless rows of purple trees. The man in black was leaning against one of the rocks a few moments ago while having a conversation with his followers. About 30 feet away, stood a rock in the shape of a human. After they left, the human-shaped rock started shaking violently and all of a sudden, turned into a young lady in a gray dress. She was Gu Shijio, who was rumored to have returned to Luohua City. After her emergence, she took out another rock of similar size from her storage bag to replace the empty spot. The place was very quiet and not frequently visited. Gu Shijio had leaned against one of the bamboo trees and stood lazily. She watched as the man in black disappeared from a distance and smiled. She looked at the bracelet on her wrist and gave it a few gentle taps. "Little Tsang, stop playing dead. I have transferred some spiritual power to you. It is time for you to wake up." The dull and black bracelet on her wrist finally came alive and flickered with a weak glimmer of light. In Gu Zijia's head, a conversation started to surface. "Master, I am injured. This world is not suitable for me." It must be badly injured. Even its voice sounded weak with a lack of vitality. Gu Shijio teased. "Neither is it for me. Tell me, what kind of setting is this? I have never committed anything sinful in heaven. I have even rescued the lives of many people there. And yet I was sent to this place without any memory. I have wasted months here living my life like a savage. What is the sense in all this? The heavenly law has been very unfair to me." "Master, your memory has returned." The firmament stone sounded hopeful and excited. "Of course. Did you really think that I would lose my memory forever?" "Definitely not." "Master, I thought that your memory would only return to you when you finally ascended to heaven. After all, your loss of memory and your deployment here are meant as a punishment. It could not be negotiated." Gu Shijio was surprised as she exclaimed, Since you knew that I lost my memory, why didn't you give me any hints before? Little Tsang, are you looking for trouble? I'm innocent, the firmament stone added. Master, ever since we came here, my spiritual power has been drained. There was no way I could access any spiritual intelligence. The advancement of your spiritual power to level 8 has finally enabled me to absorb some of your power to stay conscious. As I was still very weak, there was no way I could communicate with you. Also, you have been keeping yourself safe, so there was no need for me to hint anything to you. Thus, I remained quiet all this time, until you finally transferred your spiritual power to me. Otherwise, I would not even be able to talk. Chapter 2255. The Return of Her Memory 3. Silly. You have always been on my wrist, so you should have absorbed my spiritual power on your own, not relying on me to transfer energy to you. When did you become so stupid? Master, it did not work. There is something odd about the spiritual power in your body. It seemed to be sealed and locked by a special spell. There was a limit to my absorption, which is why I have been on and off all this time. Was there a spell to seal off the access to her spiritual power? Gu Shizhou tried to sense the difference in her body and found a weak, inaccessible prohibition somewhere around the acupoint of her spiritual reservoir. There was an incantation that worked as a seal, glistening with familiar fonts. Gu Shizhou recognized the writings immediately. It was Di Fui who wrote them. Needless to say, he must have placed the prohibiting spell on her. Astonished, Gu Shizhou realized that the only way to place the spell was through skin contact. He must have done it during that night when they shared an intimate moment. Di Fui's image suddenly flashed before her eyes. She rubbed her temples to dismiss the thought of him. She wanted to call him a little bastard like how she used to in the upper bound. However, it did not feel the same after all that they had been through in the Shuro world. Master, when did your memory return? Puzzled, the firmament stone interrupted her contemplation. This afternoon. It has not been long then. How did you recall your memory all of a sudden? Gu Shizhou did not know for certain. It started to happen when she witnessed the scene at the restaurant. The fragments of her long-buried memory started to surface, piece by piece. She had a hard time trying to connect the dots at once, but it eventually came to her. She began to feel slightly ill at first, so she sat and began to meditate. After a torturous headache and dizziness, she was finally able to recall all of her memory. She remembered who she used to be. She recalled the mission that was started a few centuries ago. She thought of Huang Tu, who she had been painstakingly looking for. Also, she recalled her encounter with Shen Yanma as well. On top of that, she remembered every moment that she had spent with Yin Yanli in heaven. When her memory returned, she was still with Yin Yanli. She tried hard to suppress her emotions as if nothing had occurred. When Yin Yanli asked about her plan, she convinced him that nothing had changed by saying that she had to return to Luohua City to visit her people. Yin Yanli believed her, so he gave her some gentle reminders before parting ways. They had their own rides, so they would not usually travel together. Unless necessary, Gu Shizhou would not usually use her teleportation skill. Gu Zijia's ride was a clouded leopard king, considered one of the most ferocious beasts. It had been cultivating for hundreds of years, and was on the verge of achieving its human form. However, it was unfortunately captured by Gu Shizhou and ended up becoming her ride. Its speed was incredible, and it had a unique scent that could keep all other beasts away. Its scent was easily recognizable. Whenever Yin Yanli was looking for Gu Shizhou, he would use the blood butterfly to track the beast's path. The method worked unfailingly. After they parted ways, Gu Shizhou rode the clouded leopard for about 100 miles before letting the beast continue its journey to Luohua City alone. As for her, she teleported back to where she used to be. After recalling her memory, some doubts about Yin Yanli started to surface. For example, how did he end up in the Shuro world? It was not easy to descend from heaven to the Shuro world. There were millions of different worlds outside heaven. The chances of coming to the Shuro world on purpose were even slimmer than winning the grand prize in a lottery. Di Fui told her that her presence in the Shuro world was fate. On the other hand, he had to put in a lot of effort to be here. It was also impossible for him to do so without his father's help. So how did Yun Yanli come here? It could not be a coincidence, could it? Chapter 2256. The return of her memory for. It sounded puzzling. Yun Yanli behaved like a noble gentleman whenever she was around. Perhaps he was acting too noble despite not knowing many people here. Even though he did not have many friends, he would find all sorts of reasons to leave her side for about 2 weeks every month. Sometimes he would say that they had to continue the search in different directions. Sometimes he would tell her that he had some matters to attend to. Without her memory, she never doubted anything that he said. But now that she remembered everything, she could tell that something was not right. In every city that they had been to, there would always be a vacancy or an empty table. Especially for them, no matter how crowded the restaurant or the guest inn was at the time. It if happened once or twice, it could still be considered as a coincidence. However, that was not the case. Gu Shijie once suspected that Yun Yanli might not be the man he seemed to be. However, she did not put much thought into it. Now she tried to connect every event that had ever happened and realized that something was indeed not right about Yun Yanli. More than 100 years ago, Yun Yanli disappeared during a war. For a very long time, there had not been any news about him. During the time he was away, a celestial being seemed to have appeared in the Shura world. Gu Shijie knew how long the celestial being had been around. Compared to the years that Yun Yanli was away, there was only 6 months difference. If she was not mistaken, Yun Yanli should be the celestial being who was known as the salvation of the people. He was also the one who built all 9 major cities with resistance from the blood rain, thus saving millions of lives. He even had an honorific title, known as the deity lord by the people. Why didn't he mention anything about his title to her at all? He even pretended as though he had just got to the place when they first met. With his power, he must have been able to take down the first beast that he had encountered with Gu Shijie. However, he chose to conceal his real power and acted as if he knew nothing. He even made it a long, tough fight on purpose. Yun Yanli obviously had feelings for Gu Shijie, and she was aware of it. He chose to conceal his feelings, so she never brought up the topic. However, she did give him a hint or two about how she did not feel the same for him. That explained why she did not keep very close contact with him in heaven, as he was only a friend to her. She understood why he was desperate for her attention during the time when she lost her memory. What she did not understand was why he chose to conceal his true power. The level of his spiritual power was comparable to that of a mighty immortal. When she and Di Fui came to this lousy place, their spiritual power was significantly reduced. Her current spiritual power was worse than that of a junior immortal. As for Di Fui, his power was greatly reduced from a golden immortal to a junior immortal too. How did Yun Yanli's power grow even stronger than before? He was merely a golden immortal in heaven. Heaven was blessed with an abundance of spiritual aura. In order to advance from a golden immortal to a mighty immortal, one would still have to take at least 1,000 years of cultivation to achieve that kind of advancement even in heaven. Certainly, Shin Nianma was an exception. Although Yun Yanli was obviously gifted, he couldn't achieve the level of a mighty immortal within 100 years. Another possible reason was that he had used some kind of sorcery that was against the laws of nature. Without any memory of her past, she would not be able to connect the dots. Now that she recalled, many things about him did not seem right. The more she thought about it, the more she was frightened. Certainly, everything was merely a proposed explanation made based on limited evidence. She had to teleport all the way back to find out more. Although her memory had returned, her spiritual power, unfortunately, remained the same. Luckily, she was able to access some spells, now that her spiritual level was at level 8. For example, the transformation spell. She transformed herself into a rock and used some medicine to cover up her scent. Thus, she was able to hide her tracks. Chapter 2257. Too weak to suffer the impact, even Yun Yanli failed to notice her presence. Luckily, she was able to witness an interesting scene. At least she knew that the little one from the tree palace was one of his followers. The palace master wanted to use the children as one of the ingredients in her alchemy. Fortunately, Gu Shijiao and Di Fui managed to put an end to it. After her escape, the little palace master remained hidden. All beings from the three worlds had come together in the search for her whereabouts, but failed to locate her. It turned out that the Shura world was her perfect hideaway. Gu Shijiao was convinced that the Shura world was their base. Furthermore, it could not be a coincidence that a strange combination of circumstances had sent her here. Master, it is all a tragedy. It serves as a punishment for your breach of mission from the heavenly law, thus taking your memory away and sending you here. The firmament stone analyzed the situation to her. Please do not repeat the same mistake by breaching the confidentiality of your future mission. It added with a touch of grievance. Gu Shijiao dismissed it right away. I was desperate. Otherwise, I would have to bear with the reputation of robbing a child from his cradle. How would I know that the heavenly law would be so cruel to me? The thought of Di Fui resurfaced. Surely, she also recalled the night that they had spent together. Her face darkened as she murmured, "It seems like I have turned the rumor into reality by mistake." She was indeed a cradle robber. Moreover, she was the one who made the move. Never could she have expected that she would behave so wildly without her memories of the past. If Shinjiuli and his wife found out about what she had done to their son, they surely would not let her live another day. After all, their son was only 8 years old. To be sexually engaged with someone who was still at an inappropriate age would very likely be punished with the death penalty, even in the modern days with a more open-minded society. However, what troubled her the most was the unintentional betrayal of her love in the Saha world. It was indeed a struggle. Gu Shijiao was stressed, so much so that her temples were lined with prominent veins. The firmament stone did not quite understand her almost inaudible utterance, as it had just come back alive. Ah, what has become a reality? Soon it began to have a clue. After all, it had been around in the world long enough to understand the intimacy in a relationship. Master, have you and Xinyanma had intimacy? It was eager to know. Gu Shijiao did not know what to answer. She acquiesced in her silence. The excitement of the firmament stone started to bloom. It is true then. Master, you really are good with relationships regardless of age. The last comment had already got on Gu Zijia's nerves. She gave the firmament stone a slap and protested. Regardless of age? Am I old enough for such comment? I am only slightly more than 200 years old. In heaven, I can be considered as a teenager. The firmament stone was too weak to suffer the impact. Master, be gentle. I am very weak. I cannot be treated so violently, it cried out. Gu Shijiao sat down with her legs folded. She seemed troubled. Master, are you upset about what happened between you and Xinyanma? Gu Shijiao threw a look at it and added, should I be upset? My initial plan was to preserve my virginity for the sake of Huang Tuesday. I ended up losing all my integrity because of the child, Di Fui. How am I supposed to face Huang Tu when he returns in the future? It was all about her honor. She used to be the lord of the Saha world and prioritized her integrity and freedom. She traveled the three worlds without any worries and hardly followed social conventions. She enjoyed all that independence, but in the end, she turned out to be the pervert who had robbed the cradle of an 8-year-old child. She blamed the incident on the heavenly law for leaving a stain on her good reputation. What consequence was she supposed to face in the future for what she had done to the child? The firmament stone remained silent to process all the facts. It was a little impatient, but could not share the truth, for it knew everything about the entire sequence of events that had happened in her life. Thoughtfully, it agreed to give her some guidance. Master, the previous Lord Huang Tu is already gone for good. There is no way he can ever come back. He only belongs in your past. You should not try to keep your honor for someone in the past that no longer shares your future. Think about the mortals in the Saha world. Once they are reincarnated, a new life begins with someone new. Nothing in the past will ever interfere with their new lives anymore. Gu Shijiao looked at it fixedly but kept silent. The firmament stone tried harder to persuade her. Master, you should do what your heart tells you to. You have indeed had intimacy with Prince Nianma. It does not matter who took the initiative. What matters is that you were willing to submit yourself to him that night. You have fallen for him, haven't you? Troubled, Gu Shizhou rubbed her temples in reserve. She was confused, but she could not deny the fact that she had indeed fallen for Difui. During her time in heaven, she was fond of Difui, but not in a loving way. It was more like how a senior would usually feel about a junior. However, while they were in the Shura world, she had indeed treated him as her loved one. However, she had yet to let Huang Tu go. Huang Tu had been her obsession for the past centuries. There was no way that she could let him go so easily. Was that considered as dating two men at once? She could not help but disdain her inappropriate action. Thus, she shook her head to dismiss the thought. Perhaps her best move was to leave everything to time. And right now was not the right time to get tangled up in her emotions. Difui was still missing. While bringing her attention back to current affairs, another matter came to her mind. Little Tsang, is the Yun Qingluo that they talked about the same person with the Yun Qingluo from the Saha world? The firmament stone was confused as well. Are you referring to the Heaven's Gift disciple who preyed on you in the Saha world? The one who was swallowed up and killed in the boiling hot magma? Gu Shizhou agreed with a firm nod. Right, something is not right about it. I do not remember Yun Qingluo very clearly, like many parts of my memory about her are missing. I only remember that she was once a Heaven's Gift disciple. She used to prey on me in Tianju Hall. She even conspired with some bad people to plot something evil against me. Fortunately, she who attempted to act in deceit was apt to suffer it, so she ended up being killed in the magma. However, there are many dots that I cannot connect. Do you think that Yun Qingluo is related to anything about Huang Tu? The firmament stone dared not comment much. It is so if you say so. It replied with a blurred answer. It remembered how she used to be jealous of Yun Qingluo, so much so that she almost broke up with Huang Tu because of her jealousy. As she had forgotten everything about Huang Tu, there was no way she could recall the incident, which explains why her memory about Yun Qingluo was incomplete. In deep thoughts, he started to pay more attention to the woman. Was the Yun Qingluo that Yin Yanli talked about the same woman as Yiling's wife from Luohua City? Master, do you think that Yun Qingluo is a sibling of Yin Yanli? Both of them share the same surname Yun. The firmament stone made a guess. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Yin Yanli only has one sister. She was still living in her comfortable home in the ninth heaven. She is a very cool and noble person, so she should not be the one that we are talking about. He has another god-sister though. I have only met her once in heaven. She is a very arrogant, young lady, completely different from Ms. Yun, who lives a secluded life. It is a shame that I have never met Yun Qingluo. Otherwise, I can easily tell them apart. Gu Shizhou was eager to find out more. Master, should we take a detour to Luohua City and dig the body out from her grave? Didn't the little palace master say that her flesh remains intact? The firmament stone suggested. How can I, as the Lord, dig someone's body out from their grave? It is such an unacceptable act. Gu Shizhou spoke with a strong sense of righteousness, but soon changed her mind. However, since her grave has been dug out anyway, it will not do any harm to take a quick look. Chapter 2259. It was an impossible mission even to endeavor. Gu Shizhou continued to have a small chat with the firmament stone. However, every now and then, she would find herself subconsciously staring in the direction where Yin Yanli went. She knew the man in the green robes. He was the governor of Suaya City. If the governor was one of Yin Yanli's followers, she could almost be sure that all the other governors would also be his followers. Gu Shizhou also knew that Yin Yanli's power was so much greater than what he was willing to reveal. Could the blood rain and the tremendous change about the place be a few of Yin Yanli's evil tactics? What was his purpose of creating all 9 cities? Was he really doing it out of kindness? Did the cities serve as an array formation for him to collect more spiritual aura from the place? Yin Yanli's advancement in his spiritual power had been unbelievably quick. Was it related to the array formation? Furthermore, the issue of the missing majestic pets remained unresolved in heaven. Did he have anything to do with the matter? Many questions started to come together at once, so Gu Zijia started to ponder deeply over the possibilities. Master, Do you want to follow them and see what they are up to? Gu Shijie replied. This place is so odd. Let's wait for a while. Ah, should we wait any longer? I am afraid that they will soon disappear. How are you going to enter the array formation? Silly. Yun Yanli is able to tell my presence immediately within 100-mile perimeter. If the array formation is his lifeblood, he will definitely pay extra attention to it and protect it. If I get too close, my presence may become an unnecessary alarm and ruin everything. When do we enter then? Gu Shijie looked at the moon high in the night sky and made some calculations at her fingertips. Now is the time, she commanded as she rose abruptly. Gu Shijie had always thought of herself as one of the greatest talents in an array formation. There were only very few formations that she could not solve. However, the array formation that she found after tailing Yun Yanli gave her a blow in her confidence. First, she went through the bamboo garden and arrived at the side of a hall of residence. There was a spectacular view of the place. Also, there were 8 women in the hall. They were all beautiful, each with her own attractiveness. The single commonality between the women was that all of them were wearing very thin clothes. They were almost naked. It was a very seductive view for any passerby. Gu Shijie was not seduced, but there was no way she could avoid the women on her way. Some women were sitting. Others stood. Some were playing their lutes. Some were painting. Some were playing chess. Out of the entire space in the hall, there was not a single spot for Gu Shijie to hide. No matter which direction she chose to enter, her path would definitely be exposed. The 8 women could be more than just the concubines of the governor of Sueya City. They could also be the guardians of the array formation. Gu Shijie spent some time to observe their appearances and postures. She was sure that their spiritual power was all around level 8, possibly higher. All of them could be considered as great fighters here, and they all shared the same spiritual power level as Gu Shijie at the moment. She was confident that with her experience, she was able to take one of the women down in less than an hour, but only if she could do it one-on-one. If she had to fight all 8 of them together at once, it was an impossible mission even to endeavor. Gu Shijie thought about it for a moment and decided to transform into one of the rocks in the garden. She put the rock from the garden into her storage bag and took its place. Master, aren't we entering? The firmament stone was confused. It did not quite understand why she chose to prolong the wait. We should wait. Now is not the time to enter. Act rashly, and we will only alert our enemy. Wait. What for? The firmament stone was confused. However, it soon figured out her intention. About an hour later, the governor of Sueya City finally came out of his bedroom. All the women approached him at once. Some had to bring him his robes. Some tried to fix the crown on his head. They surrounded him like a bunch of busy bees. Bewildered, the firmament stone noticed something different. Master, why don't they talk to each other at all? The two had been observing the girls for a while. The women never made any sound the entire time. Chapter 2260. You should not solely focus on their improper behavior, even when the governor was around. They remained quiet. Perfect silence prevailed. They must be mute. If I am not mistaken, they must also be illiterate, Gu Shijie commented with a sense of sympathy. The firmament stone was taken by surprise. The place was extremely secretive, so perhaps it would be better if the guardians could remain mute. Without any verbal ability or literacy, they would not be able to spill any secret by mistake. Furthermore, he was able to enjoy the luxury of having these beautiful women at his service. His delightful expression said it all. From time to time, he would pinch one of their faces or touch their breasts. Sometimes he would spank their buttocks. Such a pervert. The firmament stone was disgusted. Exactly. Gu Shijie chimed in. Nevertheless, her eyes had never left the governor and continued to spy his every movement. The firmament stone was surprised as it exclaimed, Master, you should not solely focus on their improper behavior. What do you know about? It could be one of his ways to comfort the women or a secret signal for them to open and close the machine-operated door for him. I have to memorize the sequence, Gu Shijie explained. The firmament stone remained silent. A few moments later, The governor was finally satisfied and left with a sense of pleasure. Not long after he was gone, Gu Shijiu used the facial disguise technique and took the form of the governor in green robes. She then stepped into the hall as another man. The women looked surprised by the man's sudden return, but approached him as usual. The firmament stone had to bear with seeing its master's improper exchange with the women. Gu Shijiu flirted with every single woman, and took advantage of them one by one, for as much as she could. The firmament stone could not stand the sight. To its surprise, the indecent was actually a secret sign for the women to identify the man. Soon, the women were relieved after confirming their master's identity. One of the women took her into the room, and stood her before the bed. She then went into the bed and looked for the opening to the secret door. Abruptly, the wooden panel below her suddenly turned and slipped her into a long, hidden tunnel. The secret tunnel was covered entirely in dark green, covering her face with the greenish luminescence. Above her, the upper part of the tunnel was embellished with many luminous pearls, scattered all over like stars in the sky. The pearls combined together into a big picture that resembled an array formation. Other than the pearls, there was nothing mysterious about the tunnel. The only oddity was the eye-catching color of green everywhere. From a distance, there seemed to be some noise coming from the deepest part of the tunnel. "Master, why don't we move on? Why are you looking at the pearls?" The firmament stone was puzzled. These pearls serve as the secret passage in the tunnel. If it remains unsolved, the only thing that awaits at the end of the tunnel is our death, Gu Shijiu explained. She continued to observe the pearls above. Occasionally, she would make some calculations at her fingertips. After a while, she raised her hand and pointed at some of the pearls in an orderly manner. Whisk! There was a sudden gust of wind in the all-concealed tunnel. A plume of pale pink smoke soared up from the depths of the tunnel, and filled the entire space in pink. As soon as the smoke appeared, many tiny, green bugs emerged from the walls. Soon, they blended into the smoke in pink. When the smoke began to pass off, all the green bugs laid lifelessly on the ground. The bugs sank into the ground and disappeared entirely. Soon, the soft, green surface of the ground was replaced by a row of stone slates, all the way into the dark. Gu Shijiu took steady steps on the stones, and continued her journey into the unknown. The firmament stone was obviously impressed by her intelligence. It could tell that the bugs were the glowworm. As soon as one approached its territory within a meter, the bug would be alarmed and come alive. Once it touches the skin of the intruder, he or she would be burned alive. The only remains would be the ashes of the person. Chapter 2261. The Beautiful and Charming Woman. There were thousands of little bugs of the same species around the place. With a single careless move, Gu Shijiu would definitely alarm these bugs. If that were to happen, she would no longer be the same beautiful and charming woman that she was right now. Instead, she would be a lifeless skeleton. As the journey continued, she kept uncovering the secret mechanisms that were placed in the tunnel. There had been 6 similar, and unusually deadly mechanisms so far. She could not afford to make any mistake, for her life was at stake. Yun Yanli had certainly placed a great emphasis on the security of the place. The security measures here were even greater than the ones in the international treasury that she used to see in the modern days. Her great deal of knowledge in the mechanics of these secret devices had saved her life. For another intruder without similar experience, he or she would be long dead. After 6 rounds of disabling mechanisms, Gu Shijiu stepped into a secret chamber. The secret chamber was more like a storage room that covered a vast area of space. Many shelves, which were made of green jade, were placed neatly against the 4 walls. The items on the shelves had definitely caught Gu Shijiu's attention. They were spiritual crystals everywhere. Countless of them. There were at least tens of thousands of them. Gu Shijiu took a quick tour around the room, and realized that the types of spiritual stones were more or less the same. Most of the spiritual stones here were Class 3 stones. There were about 300 Class 2 spiritual stones. Only about 100 of the stones belonged to Class 1. Needless to say, the place must be a storage room for the spiritual stones that were collected by the hunters. The spiritual stones could be found in varying sizes. The smallest one was as small as the size of a pigeon egg. Gu Shijiu did not hold back. She opened up her storage bag and placed all the Class 1 and Class 2 spiritual stones into her possession. She also collected about 2,000 Class 3 spiritual crystals and filled her bag to the maximum before she stopped. The firmament stone was excited by the number of spiritual stones in Gu Zijia's possession. It wanted the stones too, very badly. Swiftly, it opened its storage space wide open and started swallowing every spiritual stone that it could possibly find on the rack, row by row. Very soon, hundreds of spiritual stones were already placed in its possession. There were many unnecessary things in its storage space, so it wanted to remove some of the items to make space for more spiritual stones. However, Gu Shijio stopped it. That is enough. The firmament stone would always do as told, though it was certainly reluctant at this stage. It stopped taking for more. It then suggested, "Master, you should consider carrying more storage bags. It is when you are using the limited space in your storage bag that you wish you had more bags." Gu Shijio did not know what to say. She ended up ignoring the firmament stone's suggestion and continued to search for more secret chambers, specifically the array formation mentioned that Yun Yanli spoke about earlier. After a while, she finally found the activation key above, but she retreated before her hand had even touched it. What is it? The firmament stone was confused. The activation key to the array formation can only be opened by someone with spiritual power at level 9 and above. What should we do? The firmament stone was worried. Before she could answer the firmament stone, she could hear through the wall that something loud was moving through the array formation. It was not good. Someone else was about to enter the room. Gu Shijio could not care less about the remaining spiritual stones. She quickly masked her scent in the room and teleported to safety. Immediately after her disappearance, the floor of the secret chamber slowly split into half, revealing two men from the ground below. Both of them were wearing green. They walked with an authoritative posture and a sharp look in their eyes. "Master needs more spiritual stones this time." "Yes, we were asked to take 10 Class 1 spiritual stones at a time." Their conversation halted as soon as they saw what happened on the shelves. Chapter 2262. She could easily abandon anyone, but not the beast. The spiritual stones have been stolen. Oh my God! All the Class 1 and Class 2 spiritual stones are gone. We have to report it to our master immediately. Unbelievable. Who could have possibly been here? Search the place. Quickly. We need to see what else is lost. Oh no. The devil-resistant fire clothing and the yin-yang mirror are both gone. Soon, the entire governor's residence was alarmed by the theft. Yun Yanli stood in the middle of the room. His face turned ghastly pale under the mask. After a thorough investigation, he was sure that all his Class 1 and Class 2 spiritual stones were gone. Also, at least 3,000 pieces of Class 3 spiritual stones were stolen too. These spiritual stones were his property, which was accumulated over 100 years. Almost all of his possessions were stolen at once. Who could it be? He released the bloody butterfly to capture the scent, but there was no sign of any intruder, only the scent of his men. Could it be that his men stole what was entrusted to their care? Disdainfully, he looked at the governor of Suiya City, who was now trembling on the ground. "What do you have to say? Your women have made it clear that it was you who came in here last," he interrogated with an icy tone that was intimidating. The governor kept knocking his head on the ground and crying out for justice. Firmly, he claimed that he was not the thief, and that someone else must have fabricated the charge against him. Yun Yanli gave him a scornful smile and mocked him. "This place is only accessible using your concubine's blood pearl. If they were not sure that it was you, why would they open the door to an outsider? You claim to have a special way of communicating with them, so when there was any thief who took your form, they would be able to tell them apart, didn't you? Even my entrance requires your guidance. How was it possible that others could come in freely?" Fearing for his life, the governor broke out in cold sweat. His voice trembled with fear as he said, "Master, I will investigate the matter thoroughly. Perhaps someone smart has managed to figure out the secret signs used between my women and me." He was sure that the signs were unique. Their way of communication was through a series of flirtation, which was impossible to be discovered by any onlooker. How could the thief figure out the sequence so quickly? A sudden idea occurred to Yun Yanli. Quickly he released the bloody butterfly to locate Guzijia's beast. Soon the bloody butterfly returned. It was clear that Gu Shijiu and her ride, the Clouded Leopard King, were already more than 800 miles away from their location. They were supposedly heading towards Luohua City. Gu Shijiu always traveled on the Clouded Leopard beast. Over the past year, they had never been separated from one another. Even when they had to part ways, it would be for more than 2 hours. She always claimed that the Clouded Leopard King was her favorite. She could easily abandon anyone but not the beast. Under the current circumstance, she would not let the Clouded Leopard King return to Luohua City alone. After all, there was no reason for her to do that. Also, why would she steal the spiritual crystals? She probably did not even know about their presence here. Perhaps the people from the Shura Devil Kingdom must have conducted the theft. Nonetheless, no matter who the thief was, the governor of Sueya City could not get away from his responsibility for the entire incident. Yun Yanli gave the governor a firm look in the eye. "Someone," he called out loud. Then he continued with a gentle tone to convey a firm message. "Take him out and punish him hard with 300 strikes of the spiritual wind whip, but keep him alive so that he can retrieve all the spiritual stones for me." The entire residence turned into a mess. Many armed men were sent to find the possible thief. Every guest in every restaurant and every house was searched thoroughly. All of a sudden, the entire Sueya city went into a state of panic. It was already midnight when the search began. Most of the citizens were already asleep when the armed soldiers broke into the houses. They stared at the armed forces helplessly, not knowing what had happened. Gu Shijiu did not stay in any guest inn, but also had not left the city yet. At this moment, she sat high up on a tree and watched as the entire search frenzy unfolded before her eyes. Every available armed force was organized into teams. Chapter 2263. How long do you plan to watch the bustling scene? The streets were restless with many armed men coming and going at the same time, but none of them paid any attention to the tree by the streets. Certainly, they would not notice Gu Shijiu there even if they looked closely. Gu Zijia's body was hidden by the invisibility spell. Her presence would remain unnoticed unless someone as powerful as Yun Yanli came by. Certainly, they did not think that anyone would have the courage to stay in the city after conducting such a great theft. Even more ludicrously, why would the person choose to stay high up in the trees and watch the search? The firmament stone watched as teams of armed men continued to pass by the tree. These people did not even bother to look up at the tree. It sighed. Gu Shijiu turned the bracelet around her wrist as she said, "The closer you stand towards the light, the less you can actually see beyond it. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is usually the safest hideout." Impressed, the firmament stone agreed. "Master, how long do you plan to watch the bustling scene?" Gu Shijiu leaned against the trunk and said, "A while more." She seemed at ease. Although her kung fu had not improved much, her usual temperament slowly returned. It had been quite some time now that she had stayed on the tree. In fact, all the soldiers were already assigned with a mission, leaving behind a quiet and rather empty place. Then, she saw Yun Yanli leaving the governor's house. Soon he disappeared like a trail of smoke into thin air. Along with him, there were 18 other men with the same green robes. These men obviously possess great kung fu. Their spiritual power was at least at level 9, or more. As they swept by quickly, their disappearance into the air was accompanied by a flurry of wind. Gu Shijiu heaved a sigh of relief as she took out a piece of green cloth. She closes her eyes and tried to recall something. The green cloth was what she found from the place where Di Fui disappeared. Yun Yanli saw her picking up the green cloth, not knowing that she had been trying to find out the origin of the green cloth for the past year. All of Yun Yanli's followers had to wear a kind of special robe, light enough to keep them cool in summer, and yet warm enough to retain heat in the winter. Also, it had resistance to fire. The robes were considerably a precious possession, assigned only to his men of the highest rank. The textile was not commonly found. In every city that Gu Shijiu had been to, She would definitely visit the fabric shops to find out more about the green cloth, but even the experts did not know its origin. Now she finally saw the men with the exact same fabric. Her palms started to sweat as anxiety struck. She now believed that Yun Yanli had returned to the spot where Di Fui was last seen, and killed his own man. Obviously, he must be plotting something evil against Di Fui. The question remained unsolved though. Was Di Fui murdered? Or did he successfully escape? After a year of painstaking search, there was still no news about Di Fui's whereabouts. However, Gu Shijie was adamant that he was still alive, spending his time somewhere away from her. Yun Yanli had been very keen on helping her in the search for Di Fui. She finally understood that he was not actually helping her. In fact, he was counting on her, so that he could capture Di Fui when she finally found him. Di Fui was the son of the celestial god and devil. They were meant to be enemies in their family feud. Everything would be fine if Yun Yanli chose to let the feud go. It would not be so bad for him if he chose to live a free and easy life with nothing to worry about. Things were, apparently, different from what Gu Shijie had expected. Yun Yanli was very ambitious. His ultimate goal must be to restore his family's name by coming into power. Therefore, Di Fui would be an obstacle that he needed to get rid of. Although Di Fui was young, he was very meticulous in his every action. Every plan of his was flawless. His inductive reasoning was always on point. The moment he saw Yun Yanli, he must have noticed something wrong about the man. However, ever since Di Fui came to this world, his spiritual power had never exceeded the level of a junior immortal. Chapter 2264. The only person she could rely on was herself. Di Fui was nowhere near to being a match to Yun Yanli. Perhaps he thought it was best for him to avoid the fight. But where would he go into hiding then? All 9 cities in the Shura world belonged to Yun Yanli. No matter where he chose to hide, his whereabouts would still be exposed sooner or later. The only place that Yun Yanli feared was the Shura Devil Kingdom. He was probably not hiding in that place. So how could he go into hiding without leaving any trace behind? How could he leave her behind to survive on her own? Wasn't he worried that Yun Yanli might take advantage of her? Wasn't he concerned that Yun Yanli might take his spot beside her? As the thought crossed her mind, she quickly stopped herself from overthinking. After all, she was not actually his wife. Gu Shijie silenced her illogical inner voice. Then she turned and asked the firmament stone something more important. Little Tsang, do you know anything about the Shura Devil Kingdom? Master, I am not well informed, the firmament stone argued weakly. The only setting that it was most familiar with was the Tianxi continent, which was the same as the Saha world where Gu Shijie became the lord. In the Shura world, it only knew as much as she did. Gu Shijie pursed her lips into a tight line. The only person she could rely on was herself. She was taught to be independent. So now she had to keep pushing forward using her own strength. The firmament stone was able to foresee her next move. Master, are we venturing into the Shura Devil Kingdom? It promptly suggested. Gu Shijie dismissed its thought. No, the theft of the spiritual stones has greatly weakened their operations. Yun Yanli must be very desperate now. He will definitely think that it is a plot from the people of the Devil Kingdom, so his men will definitely secure the entrance. If we go, we will walk right into his trap. Where do we go next? To Luohua City. It is time to take a look at the body. Gu Shijie was interested in the deceased, Mrs. Yun. She needed to confirm her speculations. The firmament stone was speechless. Luohua City was at least 3,000 miles away from Suiya City. Even with a horse, one would need at least 3 days to travel there on a smooth course. Nonetheless, the paths were mostly abandoned. Trees and bushes started to grow, hindering the travelers from making a smooth trip. Thus, the journey would naturally require a walk in the woods, extending the travel from a couple of days to more than a week. Gu Zijie's teleportation skill had saved her from the trouble. After she recalled her memory, she managed to attain the acme of perfection with some of her familiar teleportation spells. Each spell could take her as far as 50 miles. After dozens of teleportations, she was able to catch up with the clouded leopard king. The clouded leopard king was taking a rest somewhere in the mountains. She had told it to take its time and allowed it to wander around, so it did as told. The clouded leopard king was the king of all beasts in the Shura world. Other than the crazy Chinese alligator, no other beast dared to come any closer to it. So its journey was rather smooth. When Gu Shijie reappeared, the beast leaped in excitement. Quickly, it picked up the meat of its prey deer in its mouth and gave it to her. It swung its tail excitedly, expecting her to grill the meat. The sight of the beast reminded her of the mussel and Lu Wu, overwhelming her with a sudden sense of reminiscence. Tearfully, she took the meat and started grilling it, half for her and the other half for the clouded leopard king. While eating, her intuition told her that someone was watching her in the dark. She remained quiet, but secretly, she performed a precaution spell against the possible threat. The directed audio spell at her waist suddenly rang. It was a call from Yanli. She answered the call, and the first thing she heard was his magnetic voice. Shijie, where are you right now? Chapter 2265. Eichi was just close by. Gu Shijie gave him a casual reply. Why? Are you checking on me? Yanli answered cheekily. I dare not. I am just worried about you. Gu Shijie pretended to look around and told him exactly where she was at the moment. Are you done with your work? She asked keenly. Not yet. Shijie, please be careful. I'll see you in Luohua City later on, probably in a month or two. No worries, you go ahead with your work. I do not know where to continue searching anyway, so there is no point to trouble you. Shijie, you do not have to be so formal with me. Like I said, your problem is my problem as well. I will still continue the search for Mr. Fui. All right. The conversation through the directed audio spell then came to an end, so Gu Shijie kept it away. Like a bat in the dark, Yanli dressed entirely in his black robes. He was quietly observing Gu Shijie from the top of a tree, not too far away from where she was currently located. Relieved, the sight of her grilling meat in the woods made him believe that Gu Shijie was not the thief who had broken into his secret chamber. Swiftly he sprung into the air and disappeared. After the disappearance of his Class 1 and Class 2 spiritual crystals, he had to delay his plan. While his men searched for the stolen spiritual stones, he also sent some of the hunters to retrieve more stones to replace the lost ones. The hunt for Class 1 spiritual stones would require his personal effort, so he would definitely have no time for Gu Shijie. After keeping the directed audio spell, she continued to munch on her grilled meat. The firmament stone said, Master, it seems like Yanli still cares about you. Did he care about her? Gu Shijie answered scornfully. He was just close by. The only reason he called was that he had doubts, so he needed to check on her. The firmament stone was becoming more anxious. Has he started to suspect us? Master, will our spiritual stones be taken away from us? Gu Shijie was speechless, for the only thing that it cared about was the spiritual stones. If Yanli found out what she had done, the consequence would not be as simple as returning of the spiritual stones. Master, if he insists that you must return the spiritual stones, you can give him the ones in your storage bag. I shall not return the ones that I have kept, as he will never find out that there are more stones hidden in a bracelet. When he finds out that the amount does not tally, you can always argue that someone else had taken the rest, the firmament stone suggested. Gu Shijie was frustrated with its useless suggestion. Sternly she answered, Don't worry. When he finds out, I will give him the bracelet, so he can smash you open to retrieve the stolen spiritual stones. The firmament stone remained quiet. Gu Shijie threw away the bones in her hand and leaped onto the back of the clouded leopard king. Time to go, she commanded. Master, will Yanli continue to follow us? Of course not. He no longer suspects me, so there is no point for him to follow us, which is great. We have other matters to attend to. Gu Shijie finally returned to Luohua City. There were not many changes in the city. The first thing she did was to go and meet her people. She had been away for a long time, about 3 months. She returned to find that most of the older people above 60 were already dead, all except the clan leader. Gu Shijie asked about their deaths, but there was nothing odd about them. They died of old age. without any suffering. As for the younger ones, their work was not overexerting at all. Also, their quality of life had been greatly improved. However, the people here seemed to have aged significantly. For example, Tai Dan and Tai Nyo were actually in their early 20s, but they looked close to 30 now. Shijio, I heard that the people in the city generally age faster. Hua Jichuan sighed. Chapter 2266. You are strangling me. The only exceptions to the accelerated aging are the ones with spiritual power. For the common people, they will not usually live to more than 60 years old. This situation may have something to do with the weather, so there is nothing we can do to change it. Hua Jichuan explained the situation to Gu Shijio. That seemed like the only logical explanation. Gu Shijio observed the sky and realized that today would be another day of blood rain. The wizardry barrier had just been activated to keep the citizens safe. After some time, the rain and bats continued to fall onto the barrier. The cracking sound made it feel like doomsday had approached. Yun Yanli was obviously practicing some sort of sorcery. If he was the one who had created the wizardry barrier, then there must be something else going on about it. Gu Shijio guessed that the aging of the people here might have something to do with the wizardry barrier. Other than serving as a protective layer, it would probably absorb their vitality as well. At this moment, the thoughts only remained as her speculations. She did not voice them out, for fear that she would create unnecessary panic among the people. After a brief gathering, she returned to the same guest inn. Like clockwork, she would usually check on the room next to her first. This time, what she found in the room came as a shock. It was Di Fui's room, but his sheets were gone. More accurately speaking, all of his belongings were gone. Anxiously, she teleported straight into the owner's room. It was already late at night, and the owner was getting ready for bed. While he was removing his outer robes, Gu Shijio appeared right in front of him. Taken by utter surprise, he was obviously at a loss for words. Where are the things in Di Fui's room? Did he come and collect them? Gu Shijio questioned him while grabbing his collar. The owner suffocated under her tight grip. You should let me. You are strangling me. Gu Shijio finally realized how much force she used and let him go. But she continued to stare at him fixedly. Speak. She had paid him enough to reserve both rooms for the next 5 years. Also, she once told him that everything in Di Fui's room must remain untouched. No one was even allowed to clean his room. Everything must stay the same until his return. A lady came just the day before yesterday. She claimed to be Mr. Dis' fiancé and packed his things away. She said that she would rather destroy the things than to let it benefit others. Gu Zijia's face darkened with disappointment. Fiancé? Was there any proof? You could not possibly believe her words so easily. The owner sighed. Of course. I did not believe her at first, but she proved her identity with one of Mr. Dis' personal possession. Also, she was able to show me her directed audio spell that was used to contact Mr. D. During the call, Mr. D had personally instructed me to give his belongings to the lady. I was able to recognize his voice, so it must be him. Moreover, the only things left were his sheets, nothing precious. There was no reason that she should lie to me. By the way, the lady even paid for the rental for the time that it was occupied. The owner was right. No one else would be interested in the sheets other than Di Fui himself. The money that the lady left behind was able to pay for hundreds of premium sheets. Gu Shijio left the owner's room with a heavy heart. Before she left, she reminded the owner not to tell anyone about Di Fui. He agreed with a firm nod. That is for sure. I have never mentioned anything about my guests to outsiders. Other than you, no one else knows about Mr. Dis' room here. Gu Shijio acknowledged it with a nod in return before exiting the room. Chapter 2267. What I hear may be false, but what I see must be true. The blood rain was unusually pleasing tonight. It seemed like normal rain for once. Each raindrop hit the barrier with a crisp sound. Before, the rain used to be a massive downpour with no seeming end. Tonight, the attacking bloody bats seemed to be gentler. After trying to penetrate the barrier for a while, they flapped their wings and left instead. Every time the blood rain came, the the citizens would naturally become more anxious. Occasionally, the rain of blood or the bats would fall through the cracked parts of the barrier and hit any unlucky ones. When the time came, all the troops would draw up in a battle array. Also, the here people would not get a good night's sleep. They would go to bed fully dressed, so they could run if anything went wrong. To their surprise, the blood rain was rather mild tonight. Driven by a sudden sense of excitement, they were hopeful about the disappearance of the rain. Was the calamity about to be over? Would the rain grow milder and milder? Would it finally be gone for good? The people were starting to get tired of their confinement within a city. Also, fighting the beasts for survival was not the kind of life that they wanted. They wanted the peace that they used to have. Animatedly, the topic became widely discussed among the people. Gu Shijie sat on a tree and started to drink wine from a bottle gourd. For some time now, she had been fairly occupied. There was no time for her to rest or to properly enjoy a drink. Getting drunk was not even an option. However, she needed to drink her sorrow down tonight. Master, don't worry. Prince Nianma does not have another fiancé. There must be some misunderstanding. The firmament stone convinced her. I know, Gu Shijie answered briefly. What is this about then? The firmament stone felt that she was about to take solace in alcohol. Gu Shijie took another sip of her drink before answering with a smile. I have been looking for him for more than a year now. It is becoming an obsession. You do know that my biggest concern has always been his safety. Now that I know that he is safe and well, is there any better news than this? With the same smile she added, I have been worried for so long. Right now, I can finally ease my anxious heart. The firmament stone did not know what to answer. It took some time before speaking. Master, what the owner told you might not be entirely true. Perhaps he only wanted to rent the room out to someone else, thus throwing out all of Defuy's belongings. He had to lie to you in order to escape your accusation, the firmament stone suggested. It sounded unsure though. Gu Shijie looked at it and said, there is no reason for him to lie. Nevertheless, the search will eventually continue until I finally find him. What I hear may be false, but what I see must be true. I will finally relax when I see him well and alive. The firmament stone heaved a sigh of relief. Yes, what you hear may be false, but what you see must be true. Master, you should not let the misunderstanding continue. It is enough. Many relationships are ruined because of misunderstandings like how you used to. It stopped abruptly before giving out a heavenly secret. The complete sentence would be like how you used to be separated for so long from Huang Tu, due to some misunderstandings. Luckily, Gu Shijie was not paying much attention to it. Silly little Tsang, I have been in the world long enough not to let anyone fool me so easily. My experience always works in my favor. The firmament stone was relieved. Yes. Master, you are the best. Gu Shijie regarded its polite expression of praise with a tight smile. She continued to enjoy the rainy view with another sip of her wine. Indeed, she did not believe anything about his fiancé, but it still made her feel uncomfortable. If he had always been well and alive, why didn't he send her any message? She was not asking for much. She only wanted to know that he was safe. If he had done it earlier, she would not have to be worried for so long. Chapter 2268. I have had enough to drink. Time to work. Perhaps Defui was really hurt by her brutal honesty the last time they met. Gu Shijie said that she did not want to see him again, and he really went missing from that day onwards. Had she not returned to Luohua City, she would not even find out that he was still alive. It was possible that he did not even think that she would be worried. She decided to stop thinking about, for she did not want to be as childish as he was to her. As long as she knew that he was still alive, she was fine. After she finished the bottle of wine, she threw the empty bottle on the ground and shattered it into pieces. The loud sound had attracted many curious eyes. Even the firmament stone was surprised. Master? Gu Shijie stood up abruptly. I have had enough to drink. Time to work. She sprung into the air and teleported straight to the city outskirts. The rain had already stopped pouring, and the moon was once again shining down in its great luminescence, turning everything on the land silver white. It was actually better to have different shapes of the moon from time to time, she thought. It was boring to keep looking at the full moon every day. She arrived at Madame Yun's grave. Even the most secure and well-built grave did not seem to be able to keep the people away from digging the coffin out. Gu Shizhou knew that the grave had been disturbed before. In fact, the coffin was reburied not too long ago, so the soil still remained very soft when Gu Shizhou started digging, making her investigation much easier. In just a brief moment, the coffin resurfaced. Surely, Yun Yanli's men must not have expected that someone else would be interested in the body, so they did not actually nail the coffin shut. With a push, the coffin was open again. Gu Shizhou did everything so quickly that even the firmament stone was convinced that her previous job must have been a tomb raider. Gu Shizhou finally saw Madame Yun's body for the first time. She hesitated. Her body did not decompose, but it was not as lively as they described her look to be. She was obviously dead. Her skin was rather dry, with a thoroughly pale complexion. However, she could roughly picture how she looked like when she was still alive. Her appearance was somewhat familiar to Gu Shizhou. From the way Gu Shizhou recalled Yin Qingluo from memory, her face actually looked quite alike with the face of the dead body. She also looked similar to Yun Yanli's sister, who paid no attention to the world whatsoever. Overall, Madame Yun's appearance looked like a combination of the Yin Qingluo that she knew from her past and Princess Yun in the Ninth Heaven. The firmament stone was reluctant to take another look at the dead body. The same could be said for Gu Shizhou. However, she had to step foot into the coffin and check the body thoroughly. Fortunately, she looked even more professional than a coroner. "Master, what are you looking for?" No matter who she is, a dead body will remain dead. From the look on her face, we can already tell that she died from her obsessive practice in kung fu. The firmament stone blabbered on and on. It thought it had almost half of the knowledge required to be a doctor. There did not seem to be anything unusual. Gu Shizhou ignored it, and continued to check the condition of the dead body from head to toe. All of a sudden, she came to a shocking conclusion. This body is not her real body. I am afraid that it is only a puppet, the highest quality of its kind. Shocked, the firmament stone questioned. Puppet? Could she be the reincarnation of Yin Qingluo? I clearly remember that Yin Qingluo was very good in puppet manipulation. Gu Shizhou did not answer as she was completely absorbed in her thoughts. Master, I am impressed that the puppet is enough to fool Yun Yanli. Strange. Strange? Yun Yanli is not very skilled in medicine. I am actually not surprised that he failed to realize it. Speaking of which, could anyone be better than me in the medical field? That is true. The firmament stone honestly approved of that statement. Master, if she is really the reincarnation of Yin Qingluo, why does she not look like how she used to before? It questioned. Chapter 2269. She only became a celestial being through cultivation. Usually when one reincarnates, his or her appearance will change a little. The gender changes too sometimes. What is strange about it? Gu Shizhou gave it a gentle knock and teased. I realize that you are getting dumber day by day. The firmament stone did not know what to answer. Instead, it tried to switch the topic. Master, where do you think Madame Yun would go after faking her own death? Gu Shizhou stopped making any speculations. Slowly, she recalled the incident when she visited the restaurant in Suiye City and encountered with the powerful woman who dressed in white. She did not reveal her face and left with only a message. Also, there was her companion who possessed incredible skills. The man had only spoken of a few words with a voice that was obviously different from Di Fuy's. Even his kung fu was nothing like she had seen before. Nonetheless, she still thought that the man must be Di Fui. It was a shame that the man had already left when she teleported there. Could the man and the woman be Yin Qingluo and Di Fui? 2 weeks after Di Fui went missing, Madame Yun faked her own death. The coincidence was too unbelievable. Gu Shizhou looked at her fingertips. Now that she had her memory back, she could actually use her own spells to track him. She tried to find out about Di Fuy's whereabouts through the use of spells, but there was no result. Perhaps he was thousands of miles away from her. Di Fui certainly possessed good tracking skills too. Had he ever tried to track her down? Probably not. Otherwise, he would have shown up a long time ago. Although Yun Yanli's intention was not entirely kind, perhaps somewhat wicked even, at least he really did put in the effort to help her in the search for Difui. He had a wide connection with the people, in addition to the spies that were secretly involved. Many must be looking for the same man, but the result remained the same in all 9 cities. Perhaps Difui was really hiding in the Devil Kingdom. The Shura Devil Kingdom could be somebody else's worst nightmare, but it surely was nothing challenging to Difui. He was, after all, the son of the celestial being and devil. There was at least half of the devil's bloodline in his body. She needed to take a tour to the Devil Kingdom for sure. However, she was unsure if she could resist the high temperature of the underground fires of hell. After all, she only became a celestial being through cultivation. Little Tsang, do you know of any ways to enter into the Devil Kingdom? The firmament stone thought about it and answered, Master, we did not enter the territory of the Devil Kingdom the other day, but I could already feel the heat that was burning within. Actually, do you still remember that we used to have the forbidden land of burning fires? It was the place where you found the purple cloud mushroom. I think the fires of hell from the Devil Kingdom are more or less the same as the fires in the Forbidden Land. Perhaps, with the clothing made of the skin of a Kuan Peng, the one given by the previous lord. Abruptly, the firmament stone stopped making any further suggestion. The more it spoke, the more mistakes it made. It had just given away a heavenly secret, yet again. It was getting worried that the heavenly laws would give it a severe punishment for its unintentional mistakes. Silently, Gu Shizhou started wondering about the clothing. In her memory, she remembered about a few unfinished pieces of Kuanping skin. It only became a proper outfit after she put all the pieces together and stitched them by hand. The pieces were already well measured. After putting all of them together, they combined into an outfit that was practical and elegant. However, she could not remember anything about the origin of the pieces of skin. The firmament stone's unintentional reminder somewhat connected the dots. I did not know that the dress was made for me by Huang Tu himself. Did he really make it? I do not quite remember the details. The firmament stone remained silent and purposely ignored Gu Zijia's question. Suddenly, Gu Shizhou took the firmament stone off her wrist and stared at it sternly. Little Tsang, you do remember him, don't you? What else has he done for me? Did we get married? Why did he make the outfit for me? Chapter 2270. What do you mean? Gu Shizhou had many questions, but the firmament stone was allowed to answer any of them. Say something. Gu Shizhou demanded very desperately. She hated it when it blabbered on over the trivial, but remained quiet when she needed an answer. Master, I cannot tell you about the heavenly secrets. It had to say something before Gu Shizhou disposed of it like trash. Gu Shizhou was speechless. It was the heavenly law again. She hated the heavenly laws. As a lord, she knew that there would be consequences to those who chose to reveal any heavenly secrets. The fate of many would change, like a chain reaction. As a punishment, the change of fate would mostly end up negatively affecting people. She looked at the pitch-black firmament stone, which was now playing dead, and sighed. She sat with her legs crossed while looking up to the sky, especially at the moon. Her dress danced in the wind while her pretty face felt cold in the night breeze. Suddenly, she took out another bottle of wine and started drinking. She looked very sad. She felt somewhat guilty as she murmured, I think I have failed as a person in general. Huang Tu has been so good to me. Everything he did for me, he did it wholeheartedly. I am sure that I used to like him a lot too. As soon as he was immortalized, I forgot everything about him. There seems to be no way to recall anything about him. Now there is obviously hope for his resurrection. And yet I chose to fall in love with somebody else. I have always hated those who commit to more than one relationship at the same time. And yet I have now become the kind of person that I hate the most. The firmament stone panicked for a little after the extensive silence, but it continued to play dead. Meanwhile, Gu Shizhou took one sip after another. The firmament stone thought that she should really stop drinking. She had already had a bottle of wine. She would definitely get drunk after another bottle. The firmament stone was still trying to think of what it could say or do. Suddenly, It could feel some water dripping on it. The droplets tasted bitter. Shocked, the firmament stone looked up, only to realize the tears rolling down her eyes. She was looking at the night sky and crying. The firmament stone felt bad for her, but did not know any words of comfort. Little song, I really looked down on myself. If Huang Tu knew about this, he would surely be very sad. He would probably hate me or even look down on me. The more she elaborated, the more tears rolled down her cheek. The firmament stone could not hold itself back anymore. No, master. He would not hate you or look down on you. But I have fallen for somebody else. He would surely think that I am heartless because of the betrayal. No, you did not betray him. Bewildered, Gu Shizhou looked at it and asked, "What do you mean?" Once again, the firmament stone let another secret slip out of its mouth. It tried hard to cover up its mistake. When he was alive, you never betrayed his love. His immortalization means that his existence is no more. There is nothing wrong if you have fallen for Difui. It does not count as a betrayal. Is that so? Gu Zijia's eyes darkened. Suddenly she added, "What you really meant is that Difui is actually his reincarnation, so they are basically the same man, which makes the betrayal invalid, am I right?" Anxiously, the firmament stone trembled. She was too good at making guesses. Hesitantly, the firmament stone gave her another clever excuse. "Master, I have never said so. It is all your own thinking. As for your relationship, I suggest that you should take it easy and go with the flow. It is always good to trust your intuition." Gu Shizhou closed her eyes to think about what it said. Suddenly, she stood up and shattered the bottle on the ground. The firmament stone was shocked by her sudden display of energy. Little Tsang, you are right. It is always right to follow my intuition. Let's go. Go. Where are we going? The firmament stone was confused. To the Shura Devil Kingdom. We are going to look for Difui. That little bastard. She whistled to summon the clouded leopard king, and it rushed to approach her. Gu Shizhou leaped onto the leopard and rode quickly towards the direction of the Shura Devil Kingdom. The firmament stone noticed her bright eyes, which were shining with hope. Her face was also crimson red, probably due to the alcohol. Seeing how energetic she was right now, it was hard to imagine her crying just a few moments ago. The tears in her eyes were nowhere to be seen. It suddenly understood. She was only acting to get its sympathy, so it would tell her more about what she wanted to know. Once again, it had fallen for her trick. It did not like her tricks, obviously. Gu Shizhou had always thought that the firmament stone was not entirely trustworthy. Her doubt was proven to be true the moment they arrived at the Devil Kingdom. After a rough journey to the entrance of the Devil Kingdom, she quickly changed into the clothing made with Kuanprung skin. However, she was almost burned alive. The moment she stepped into the Devil Kingdom, the fires of hell started to burn vigorously. The Kuanprung skin clothing that she was wearing did not burn right away, but it was heated up almost instantaneously. Gu Shizhou felt as if she was putting herself in a steamer while wearing it, a steamer of nearly 100 degrees Celsius. As soon as she realized that something was not right, she quickly used her teleportation skill and retreated to safety. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Even though she acted swiftly, some parts of her skin were unfortunately burned. There were already some noticeable blisters. Her burned skin was attached to the inner layer of the Kuanprung clothing. The moment she took off the clothing, it almost peeled her skin off. Little Tsang, you are so mean to me. I almost died because of you, Gu Shizhou said grinningly. She then hid into a bush and started to treat her burned wound. Disappointed with itself, the firmament stone did not fight back. For a normal burn, Gu Shizhou could just apply some medicine to the wound, and it would heal within an hour. However, the burns that she got from the fires of hell this time were severe. After 4 hours of intense pain, the wound did not seem to heal one bit. What is worse, the wound was beginning to become festering. Gu Shizhou thought that she was a good doctor, but even she could not heal the wound. The fires of hell in the Devil Kingdom were obviously different. There was no scale even to place it on. Could Difui really live under such monstrous fires? She shook her head to dismiss the question that she had no answer for. She needed to focus on her wound first. While she was trying to look for another medicine in her storage bag, some moving from a distant bush caught her attention. Could it be some wild animal? Gu Shijio looked up and saw a little wolf emerging. The wolf was covered entirely in snow-white fur, but the look in its eyes was filled with immense indignation. Its stomach was injured, and the blood from its wound had greatly stained its fur. It looked at Gu Shijio fixedly, obviously scared, but desperate for her help at the same time. The wolf looked beautiful. It was a very rarely seen silver wolf. The wolf reminded Gu Shijio of her favorite dog from the modern days. She waved at the silver wolf and asked it to come forward. Come over here. Let me have a look at your wound. Surprisingly, the wolf understood her call. It raced quickly towards Gu Shijio and lay down with all of its legs facing upward to reveal the wound on its stomach. The silver wolf was not only beautiful but very clever as well. Astonished, Gu Shijio examined the wound on its stomach. It was only a cut, which was not difficult to be treated. Gu Shijio applied the best medicine on the wound to speed up the healing process. Then, she finished treating the wound with an appropriate dressing. She then patted the wolf and said, I did not expect you to understand human language, which is a gift. Go. Don't let the hunters see you again. Chapter 2272. Stop pulling me. I will go with you. The little wolf kept looking at her with its bloodshot eyes. All of a sudden, it grabbed the hem of her dress and started to pull her away, like it was trying to take her somewhere. She stood in bewilderment. Where are you taking me to? She asked. The wolf gave her a low purr and continued to pull. Gu Shijio did not quite understand its intention. All right. Stop pulling me. I will go with you. She finally gave in. Was it trying to tell her that there was somebody else who needed her help? The wolf was able to understand the human language, so as soon as Gu Shijio agreed to go with it, it turned around and started racing in the direction from which it came. While running, it turned its head around for a few times, for fear that Gu Shijio might not catch up with it. Gu Shijio followed the wolf closely. Don't worry. Since I have promised to go with you, I will definitely go with you. Keep running. Thus, the little wolf started to speed up. Gu Shijio always knew that she was destined to meet with many majestic beasts from every corner of the world. She had met many as it was, for example, the mussel, Luwu, and the clouded leopard king. What she did not expect was that she would receive a child someday. It was a child that she could not abandon. The fair-skinned child was only 2 or 3 months old, with big, bright eyes, long lashes, and crimson cheeks. The baby was now wrapped in a baby blanket. The wolf needed Gu Shijio to save the baby. He was found under a big tree. 2 bodies were lying not too far away from him. The woman was wearing a white dress, while the man was lying close to her in green robes. The man and the woman were doomed to the same fate. Both of them were severely hurt. The man was already dead by the time Gu Shijio checked on him, but the woman was still alive, though with weak breaths. Gu Shijio took a quick look, and was able to identify the man from the look of his green robes. He must be one of Yin Yanli's men. Who was the woman then? An enemy's enemy was a friend after all. Undoubtedly, Gu Shijio went on to treat the woman's wound but soon gave up. The woman was too critically wounded, beyond any cure. She was merely lingering on her last breaths of life. Gu Shijio was ready to leave, but the woman noticed her movements and opened her eyes. She looked at Gu Shijio, desperately trying to tell her something, but could not get her words composed. Gu Shijio bent and fed her a pill. The pill was not able to turn her life around, but it could, at least, give her some strength for a short recovery of consciousness before death. As expected, some radiance returned to the woman's complexion. Lady, please save Lingair, she pleaded. Gu Shijio knew that Lingair was the baby that she had just found. Don't worry. I will save him, she reassured. She carried the baby in her arms. He seemed well. Quietly, his dark eyes were looking at Gu Shijio fixedly. Take him closely with you. Do not let him get caught. The woman looked at the baby, and was loath to part with him. If possible, please send him to the Shura Devil Kingdom. Gu Shijie was caught off guard by her request. With a sigh she confessed, I cannot enter into the Devil Kingdom. I tried, but was immediately burned. She rolled up her sleeves to reveal her burn. Trembling, the woman tried to hand her a red bottle. Apply this. It is meant to treat the burn. Everything seemed fated. Gu Shijie accepted the bottle. Please. I beg you. This child. Chapter 2273. The baby could talk. She died before she could even finish her sentence. After her last breath, her arm slid to the ground. Purr. Purr. The silver wolf put its head around the dead woman. Saddened by the woman's death, tears started rolling in its eyes. The silver wolf was obviously a pet, and the baby was the woman's child. Somehow, she must have offended Yun Yanli's men, resulting in such deadly consequence. The woman risked her life trying to send her child into the Devil Kingdom. Was the father a member of the Devil Kingdom? Many doubts surfaced, but only the last explanation seemed logical. Before leaving, Gu Shijie dug a hole and buried the woman. The silver wolf rushed forward and pulled the woman's dress with no intention of letting go. Its tears had completely wet its face. It was indeed a loyal pet. Gu Shijie was moved by the sad story as well. She carried the silver wolf in her arm and patted its head gently. She is already dead. No amount of tears can bring her back to life. It is better to bury her body than to leave it exposed in the wild. The silver wolf finally let go of the woman's dress. It did not take Gu Shijie long to bury the body. She even made a grave for the stranger who died in the wild. She carried the baby to the grave and said, Little baby, come here and say goodbye to your mother. The baby took a look at the grave, then at Gu Shijie. His lips were pursed into a thin line, but he did not cry or even sob. Gu Shijie sighed as she thought that the baby must be too young to understand how it felt to be parted forever with his loved one. He was not as keen as the young silver wolf on saying goodbye. The latter kept circling the grave tearfully. Gu Shijie could not help but grieve for the woman too. After burying the body of the woman, Gu Shijie looked at the body of the man in green. She heaved a long sigh and decided to bury him as well, but at a different place. She was only doing it as an act of kindness. After all, she could not leave his body here to be torn apart by the wild animals in the woods. The medicine from the woman was working really well. After a while, the wound had turned into scars, and the pain was no longer bothering her. The medicine managed to solve that problem, but there was another bigger problem now. She still did not know how to enter the Devil Kingdom. As soon as she took the first step, she was immediately burned and bruised. If she had to travel further, she would most probably end up as a pile of ash. The same would happen to the baby, wouldn't it? They would both turn into ashes. How was she going to take him along? She poked the baby's cheeks gently and said, Little one, your mother has put me in a very tough situation. I can never go into the Devil Kingdom. The youth retaining herb. The baby uttered a few words loudly and clearly. Gu Shijie was very surprised. She never knew that the baby could talk. How could a baby start talking when he was only 3 months old? He was such an amazing baby. The baby reminded her of Difui. She was told that Prince Nianma could already talk the moment he was born. He could even walk and jump around, like Neza, the divine warrior in Chinese mythology. The baby somehow resembled Prince Nianma. However, he could only talk for now. He was not half as good as Prince Nianma. Do you mean to say that with youth retaining herb, I would be able to step into the Devil Kingdom? Gu Shijie needed to confirm the matter. Youth retaining herb and devil quenching clothing. Gu Shijie knew about the herb, which was a kind of ingredient that was very rarely found. But she was not so sure about the devil quenching clothing, and where she could get it. Huan Feng had the devil quenching cloth on her. The baby said while pointing at the grave of the woman she had just buried. Gu Shijie was speechless. Why didn't the baby tell her earlier? Gu Shijie had to dig the grave out again in order to retrieve her body. Chapter 2274. Come. Tell me who you are. Gu Shijiu examined the dead body and found a small bag. It was her storage bag, the best of its kind. There was a set of clothing in the bag which was entirely dark-colored, decorated with some green piping details at the edges. The color was not dull at all. In fact, it was glowing with the same luminescence as the fires of hell. Is this the devil-quenching clothing? Gu Shijiu needed confirmation. Yes. Gu Shijiu examined the clothing carefully and realized something. She then took out another piece of clothing from her storage bag to make a comparison. It was the clothing that she had taken from Yin Yanli's storeroom. It was hung appropriately with a great amount of care, so Gu Shijiu took it with her as she left. She did not know what it was back then, but she did now. It was the devil-quenching clothing. Why did Yin Yanli keep this in his storeroom? Was he having some sort of business connection with the people from the Devil Kingdom? Can I enter the Shura Devil Kingdom freely with the help of this clothing? Gu Shijiu asked the baby in her arms. You will need the youth-retaining herb as well. Although it was rare, it was not impossible to obtain. People sold the herb in auctions. It was also used to make beauty products and served as a supplement to delay the process of aging. Gu Shijiu was finally relieved after finding out the way to get into the Devil Kingdom. Was she your mother? Gu Shijiu asked the baby again. Silently, the baby blinked his eyes, looking innocent. Don't you lie to me. You did not call her your mother. You called her by her name instead. Gu Shijiu wanted to know more. Come, tell me who you are. The baby closed his eyes and avoided eye contact. His eyelashes were long and thick. Therefore, with his eyes closed, he looked unusually adorable. Normally, people would not put a baby in an awkward predicament, but Gu Shijiu was not like anyone else. Determined, she put the baby under a tree and made herself clear. You have refused to tell me the truth. Now I refuse to take you with me. She tidied up her dress and was ready to leave. Panicked, the silver wolf quickly held on to Gu Shijiu's dress and started purring softly. It was worried that Gu Shijiu might leave any time. The silver wolf was obviously a crybaby. Knowing that it was not strong enough to stop Gu Shijiu from leaving, it started crying again. Casually, Gu Shijiu turned around and gave the baby another look. She could see that he was anxious too, but was too arrogant to admit it. As soon as their eyes met, the baby turned his face away. Amused, Gu Shijiu could not help but laugh at the baby's childlike behavior. He was a baby after all. She bent and took the silver wolf in her arms. You are a very good boy. Will you come with me? She started petting the wolf, very gently. The silver wolf was overwhelmed by her kindness. It turned around to look at the baby and caught him looking back at it. Purr, purr. Attentively, the silver wolf gave Gu Shijiu a lick on her hand to please her. Then it looked at the baby again. Needless to say, the silver wolf was telling her that it was ready to commit to the baby. If the baby stayed, it would stay behind with him. With a sigh, Gu Shijiu gave it another pat before releasing it. You really are a loyal friend. I will let you stay with your young master. She put the silver wolf next to the baby and was ready to go. She was not my mother, only a servant. The baby finally told the truth. What is your name? What do you have to do with the people from the Devil Kingdom? Ever since I was born, I have been running from the people who want to kill me. I do not know who I actually am. I only know what Huan Feng told me along our journey here, and nothing more. He knew that he could no longer hide his ability to talk, so he decided to tell her what she needed to know. Chapter 2275. Entering the Devil Kingdom. Huan Feng did not allow me to talk to anyone to avoid any trouble. You made a promise to Huan Feng that you would take care of me and send me to the Devil Kingdom. Are you going against your words now? The baby looked at her fixedly, with eyes full of hope. Gu Shijiu had never thought about abandoning him in the wild. She accepted his explanation and put him back in her arms again. That depends on your behavior. Adorably, the baby leaned his head against her shoulder and promised, I will behave myself. Gu Shijiu patted his back gently in return. Behave yourself. I do not want any trouble from you. I do not like to cause trouble, the baby murmured. How old are you? 2 or 3 months old. To be honest, I do not really remember. What about your mother? I do not know anything about her. I assume that you know nothing about your father as well? Concern started to cloud Gu Zijia's mind. How was she going to start searching for his parents when she did not even know whom to look for? She took a careful look at the baby in her arms again. He was really a delicate boy with beautiful features, as precious as a finely carved crystal statue. On his forehead, there was a bright red mole. Also, she was definitely attracted by his huge waterish eyes. The baby would stand out as the center of attraction no matter who carried him. He was born with the charm. She then took another look at the silver wolf that was following her closely. Both of the beings with her would certainly attract attention. Gu Shijio needed to go into the city quietly to obtain the youth-retaining herb, but she could not do it so with these two. They would draw unnecessary attention. Moreover, Yun Yanli's men were still chasing after them. Gu Shijio thus stopped and said, "All of us could use some makeup." The baby was bewildered at first, but he soon understood. Gu Zijia's transformation skill was brilliant as usual. In a blink of an eye, she could turn herself into a completely different-looking person. He, on the other hand, went from a beautiful baby to a completely unrecognizable, hideous child. His face was as tanned as a burned pan. In addition, there was a large red birthmark covering almost half of his face. No one would bother to pay any attention to him. The silver wolf did not undergo many changes, but now looked like an ordinary dog with white fur. Also, its signature red eyes had now turned black. As for Gu Shijio, she resembled an ordinary woman, who was neither beautiful or ugly. As for her attire, she decided to put on something rather elegant and graceful. "I heard that Huan Feng called you Ling Er. Is that your name?" Unhappy, the baby closed his mouth lightly in protest. "I do not wish to be called such an uncouth name. It was only a nickname that she gave to me." "What do you wish to be called then?" "I am too young to know. Will you give me a name?" Gu Shijio did not know what to say. She knew that giving names was certainly not her forte. Junair. No, Xiaoer. Sounds stupid. He refused all the names that she had just proposed. At that moment, she really could not think of anything better. She looked at the baby's nonchalant expression and was suddenly inspired. "Why don't we name you Haoer?" The baby frowned and gave serious consideration to her proposal. "How sounds acceptable. Haoer it is then." He emphasized on the spelling of the name. The baby was surprisingly cultured. He was also intelligent as he knew how to spell his name as well. "I can see that Huan Feng taught you many things," Gu Shijio said while looking at the baby thoughtfully. "It is because I am smart." The baby tried to impress her. Someone extraordinary must have reincarnated as the baby, for his intelligence was way beyond his age. Gu Shijio carried the baby with one arm and walked the dog with another as they entered the city. To Gu Zijia's surprise, obtaining the youth-retaining herb was not an easy task. She visited a few auction houses and requested for the particular herb, but all of them returned to her with the same disappointment. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.